Okay, everybody, why don't we go ahead and get started? It's 9:02. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Good morning. Thank you all for being here. Coffee is on the way. So that will be here soon. Why don't we start with introductions? We'll start with folks in the room and we'll begin with Arlen Harris.
Good morning. My name is Arlen Harris and I serve as Legislative Director of the State Board for Community and Technical Colleges. Thank you, Paul.
Sam Harriet, my pronouns are they them, my relations liaison to the state board.
Good morning, I'm Anna Olson, workforce education, and I have worker training program in my portfolio.
Joe Grills, Training Director, Local 44, Plumbers and Pipe Fitters at Brookhaven.
Nice, good to be here.
Emmanuel Flores, Washington State Labor Council, Workforce Development Director, pronouns I use.
Barry Byrack, pronouns he, him, Senior Business Development Manager with the Washington State Department of Commerce, oversee statewide business recruitment, retention, and expansion for clean technologies, advanced manufacturing, maritime, and value-added agricultures.
Okay.
I'm Mary. I'm with the Northwest for Colleges Federation.
Bill Belvin, State Board, Workforce Education.
And I'm Paul Francis. I'm the Executive Director of that.
Good morning, Carolyn McKinnon, staff to the state board.
Good morning, Gary Kamimura, Policy Manager, State Employment Security Department.
Morning, Joe Wilcox, Career Pathways Manager for the Workforce Training Board.
Great, terrific. Thank you all. And why don't we move to folks on Zoom and let's go to Courtney.
Great. Courtney Robinson, I'm the HR manager at Renaissance Marine Group.
Welcome. And
Hi, I'm Annette Harrop with Terex Corporation, also known as Genie, and I'm the Team Member Relations HR Compliance Manager.
terrific, welcome. And let's go to Neil.
Good morning, Neil Strayhugh with the Washington Roundtable.
Great, welcome. And I think I see Michael Lee. Yes, Michael Lee, hi.
Good morning, Michael Lee, Vice President for Instruction at Columbia Basin College.
Welcome, Michael. Great to have you with us. Okay, did I miss anyone on Zoom? I think I got everybody, but. Okay, great. Excellent. All right, good. And of course, we've also got Kim Wheeler from the SBCTC. She had to step off for a minute, but we're certainly grateful for her. For all of her hard work to organize this meeting. So. Okay, let's move to our next item here. We have a couple of action items to review and potentially approve. So I'll take this one by one. Let's start with the meeting minutes from our February and May meetings. Hopefully everybody had a chance to review those as part of the materials that went out. So do we have a motion to approve those minutes? So move. Go to the second. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all those opposed, nay. Okay, the minutes are approved.
Beg pardon, who's second? Who did the second?
Second was it Harry?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just to make sure Kim has it for the minutes.
Oh, yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Carol. Okay, let's go next to the bylaw updates. Those were sent out as well. I would generally characterize the bylaw updates as mostly technical, just some language corrections, just modernizing some of the language. The biggest piece for me is related to the meeting frequency. It changes the frequency from at least once per quarter to at least twice a year. That doesn't mean that we can't meet more often, a special meeting or anything like that, but I think we're just cognizant of busy schedules and costs to travel and things like that as part of this work. So anything you want to add to that, Bill? Or?
No, just I guess I would add that acknowledging Marianne's position as a non-government agency, we realized that that didn't fit into the state board CTC representation. So we're just modifying also that position, creating that non-government agency representation as well.
Marianne is a really important part of our committee, so we're grateful to have you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
It's good to have you. So. Good, okay. Any comments or folks online? Okay, very good.
Just one, just food for thought. In section 3. Or Article 3, Section 1, where you refer to the committee being representative of the diversity of the state, I guess, right? Of the population and geography of the state. Just having been in a number of these conversations as we visit sites, I've come to realization that the community and technical college population tends to be much more diverse than, say, the state's population as a whole. So I'm just curious to know if there might be any interest in having the committee maybe be more reflective of the diversity of the community and technical college system, student population.
I
Yeah,
see.
just food for thought.
Article 3, Section 1.
Yes.
Okay, it's an interesting point. What do folks think? More than 50% of our students, our community and technical college students do identify as people of color. I don't know what the percentage is for the state. Obviously, the state is a diversity line as well, but it's certainly, it's certainly not 50%. Yeah, any thoughts from folks on that?
I think that would be fantastic to have it be a reflection of the diversity of the state, especially with potential, a new, not sure what, but a new governor coming in. And I would imagine there are going to be asks that come about that are going to be saying, can we maybe make all boards, government, whatever community boards be a reflection of the community as much as possible. So I think that's a fantastic idea.
Okay, so the idea of changing it, so rather than what is proposed now is, and will be representative of the diversity and geography of the state, to, and will be representative of the diversity geography.
I think I had something,
Go ahead.
So, yeah, I said it. I think I had a suggestion of, and will be representative of the diversity of the community and technical college student population and geography of the state. So thoughts in there.
Community and technical college, what was the best?
Student population
Student population
and geography of the state.
and geography of the state. Okay. Any concerns with that proposed language from Unity?
And I recognize that might be a little challenging. You never know, right? But I think it's something to consider.
Certainly a great aspiration. So,
This is Carolyn, just a staff comment on representative of the student community technical college student population. I want to make sure that future generations of CAC staff aren't construing that as made up of student representatives. So the
Yeah,
demographics.
The demographics.
of the demographics of that.
I think so.
Yeah, sure, that helps. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm prone to add extra syllables, but
And will be representative of the demographics of the community and technical college student population. Feel comfortable, everyone? Yes. Okay, folks on Zoom, sound good to you? Okay, please let us know if you have any concerns. Okay, thank you, Gary. Thanks for pointing that out. Any other comments? Okay, do we have a motion to approve the minutes as amended here just now?
Motion approved.
Okay, a second. Okay, great. All those in favor, please say aye.
Hey, I got a question.
Okay,
Sorry, just kind of looking over and thinking about this a little more.
sure.
I would actually like to make an amendment and get a little time to talk to my leadership about page 3, the section 1 change where we go quarterly to twice per year.
Okay,
I hear the concern about like frequency, but I just want to double check what that means on the overall 4 meetings a year, right, where we're trying to meet and guide things and just kind of need to follow up. So if we could amend, maybe leave that part or table that till the next meeting.
okay. Yeah, would be, how does that sound, Bill? I think that'll work.
Yeah. We could wait to
Just wait on.
finalize this till the next meeting. As Paul mentioned, this doesn't limit our ability to have additional meetings. It just doesn't require us to come together 3 times a year.
Yeah, so it's automated that we're meeting quarterly, right?
3 times, not actually 4, right?
Yeah, this says 4 quarterly, right?
Okay.
Yeah, according to what we currently have, it's 4. I think in practice, we've done generally 3. This would require at least twice a year at least. Yeah.
And is that twice a year just to meet in person, or is that, because we were doing 3 times a year coming together in person and then 1 by Zoom? And so is that's the other piece that I was kind of curious about is,
We've only actually met 3 times per year, once via Zoom and twice in person is what we were doing.
okay,
We never met during summer because that's not a quarter we typically consider as part of the academic year, it's an extra.
Mhm.
So, yeah, the question was about holding a Zoom meeting in the winter. And we didn't want to lock ourselves into it as a requirement. But this could say twice per year in person, or I don't know, what makes sense to. Any member though could request a call to have a meeting if there was topics to be discussed. And
Right.
there is provision for a special meeting or an additional meeting with the call of the executive director, so. There's always that option.
But if you'd like more time, we can hold on. We don't have to do this today.
I would appreciate it, but thank you.
All right, okay, any opposition to that? Okay, so why don't we table this for now? We'll come back at our next meeting and we'll keep the language that Gary has proposed, so we'll plan on including that in. Okay. Sounds like a plan. Great. Thank you all for the good discussion there. Okay, let's move to our next item. We've got about an hour and then we're going to turn it over to the OC folks. We've got student voices, faculty as well, and to talk about some partnerships, work source partnerships. So really excited about that in about an hour. But I always like to go around and just talk about, just provide some updates in terms of where everybody is. Obviously, we're on the precipice of a brand new legislative session, which is going to start in January. And so want to talk a little bit about the priorities for the community and technical colleges. And we've got some other updates from the SBCTC team coming later in the meeting, so we'll hold off on other things. But in terms of our legislative request, which has been reviewed by and approved by our president's group, in addition to our 9-member state board, we've got a couple of things that are in here. I did send it out this morning, so you have a chance to look at it. Number one, and you probably already heard about this, that we were contacted in late August from the Office of Financial Management regarding an error on their part. We were overfunded this biennium to the tune of about $47 million, including $28 million this fiscal year. This was an error that OFM staff made a number of years ago when putting together the 4-year budget outlook. It's related to I-732, the placeholder number, although it came to us as just general operating dollars. OFM is asking for that money back, unfortunately, so I consider it a mid-year budget cut to the community and technical college system, which as you can imagine is very, very challenging for campuses. Given that we are in the midst of fiscal year, campuses make commitments, we've got students on campus, this has a real impact on our 34 community and technical colleges. So our state board did approve a request to the legislature. Ultimately, we'll make the decision here about whether to allow us to retain that funding for this fiscal year. So that's $28.6 million and has an impact going forward as well. The second item for us is related to competitive compensation. As you all know, we're in the people business. About 85% of community and technical college costs are in people, are in faculty and staff. And the quality of our campuses, the quality of students' experience depends on high quality faculty and staff, right? The ability to attract and retain talent is critical. We know that. So we have a $183 million request, which will provide a salary increase for 6.5% each year of the biennium. really critical, always an important piece. And then the final piece is related to foundational support for our colleges, to the tune of $90 million. You know, you might think of this as just keeping up with inflation. Are we good to go?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, sorry. It's really providing funding for campuses to, for a variety of, unavoidable costs. So think about cybersecurity, for example. We know that we've had a number of colleges in our system experience cybersecurity incidents, attack. Those can be very costly. We don't receive, operating dollars from the legislature for, to combat against cybersecurity. And, but we know that can take down a system very quickly, right? Thinking about keeping campuses safe, campus security. In addition to the costs of electronic journals, the costs of electricity, kind of all of the other costs that is, as you know, from your organizations, continue to rise. So that is really an important piece. I think it's important to remember as well for the community and technical college system that the legislature controls our revenues, both in terms of state support that's provided as well as funding from tuition. That we have a tuition policy for the last 10 years, which is good for students in that it's a rolling 14-year average of growth in median family income, which is averaged between 2% and 3%. Good for students to keep that low, but also very challenging when inflation far exceeds 2 to 3% it has for the last several years, right? That ends up being a growing delta for colleges in terms of the amount of revenues that they have versus the costs that they are having to address. So we are hoping to get some relief from the legislature there, to $90 million, again, for all 34 of our campuses there. So that is our operating budget request. Arlen, Sam, anything you want to add to that?
No, I think that hits the nail on the head. And there's a lot of great policies that we have been involved with. Looking at things like dual credit and making sure that our colleges are fairly compensated for things like college and the high school. We've been involved in the expansion of Running Start to summer Running Start this last year. We've had some conversations. I don't think anything will come this legislative session around CTE dual credit, but Bill has been working very, very hard on conversations around that. We have been also just nuance or something we're working on with the tribes in Washington State around tribal elder tuition waivers. And this is something that came to us from the recent work that Paul and our tribal liaison, Glenda Breiler, has done. And they consider their elders 55. And so lowering a elder waiver for tribal leaders from 60 to 55 across our college system. Again, we're seeing a lot of amazing work in Indian country and Washington State this year, and more intersection with tribal students and pathways to family wage jobs, and not only around our state, but tribal enterprises are expanding across our state and in construction, in retail, in hospitality. So it's been really excited to do that work in that intersection, and that's going to perhaps spin into other policies that will come our way in coming years.
We're also working closely with the Council of Presidents, which represent our four-year institution partners, as well as an organization Graduate for Tacoma, on expanding the financial aid navigators pilot program that currently exists statewide, and adding an enrollment aspect to track how students are completing those FAFSA and WAFSA applications, and then if they are continuing to enroll at an institution post-secondary.
I'd like to add that we do have a substantial capital budget request to the legislature. For the total amount requested is $652 million. There's $88 billion in capital bond capacity. So this would be around 20% of that total. Most is to minor works, $209 million for minor works, and this is spread across our college system for things like roof repairs, facility, infrastructure program. And actually the first major construction project that would be considered on the priority list is here at Olympic College for Innovation and Technology Center, which would be, is proposed in the green space. This way, there's a green space behind me out this door that is proposed for innovation and technology programming here in Kitsap County.
Thank you. Yeah, excellent. I should add as well, thank you, Sam, for mentioning some of the important priorities, that we are always supportive of investments in state student financial aid. Those generally run through the Washington Student Achievement Council, particularly the Washington College Grant. We know that Washington has one of the best state student financial aid programs in the country in College Grant, in terms of it being an entitlement and good policy within that program. And so we're always supportive of efforts by the state legislature to reduce costs for students. So that's very important as well. So, okay, great. So that's some of our priorities. Let's go to some of our, we'll start with our state agency partners. So why don't we begin with Joe?
Sure. So some of our legislative priorities. This year we have a Perkins administrative ask, just basically equal the match of to fully realize the federal administration match. We have a part of the WAVE scholarship, which I think a lot of you have been involved with. That's to increase the amount for the scholarship and also to sustain the portal work that we've been doing on revamping the application portal that we have. Is kind of an outdated system, and we're working on that right now, actually. And then we have a long-term care health initiative with the apprenticeship program with the LPN to RN, which will also be ongoing. And we have I'm blanking on the other one. I'll come back to it.
Okay, no problem. Can you talk a little bit more about the WAVE scholarship? Because that's such an amazing program. I've served as a scholarship reviewer, and I'm always trying to promote that program. And there are a number of community and technical college students every year that benefit from WAVE.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So the WAVE scholarship is up to 3 students for each legislative for each district. And so I think that's 147 total. And it's what's unique about it is it's pretty cool is that it's merit based. You mentioned the Washington College Grant, which is obviously need based. But this is a very interesting one because it's merit based and it's focused specifically on career and technical education programs. So we've had a lot of really cool winners and some really amazing stories about a lot of different folks. And so this will increase the amount. I don't have the exact figures in my head right now, but I think it was up to it covers 2 years for all the. It can be either for in technical colleges, it can be for a 4-year college, it can be for all the different colleges. And it goes for up to 2 years. And what we're trying to do is just raise that amount that we're able to give out. I think it's going to be almost double what it is now. Right now, I think it's around 10,000.
It's 6,700. Yeah.
67. Okay, now we'll go up to closer to 10,000. Sorry.
That's okay. I'm just making sure.
You've got it right in front of you.
Right.
But yeah, so that will be and more of an ongoing basis is what we're asking for to increase that, not just for the 1 year, but it will be hopefully increased to more sustainable ongoing level.
Nice.
As well.
Good. Thank you very much. That's very exciting. If you have an opportunity, I'll put in a plug. If you have an opportunity to serve as a scholarship reviewer, please do. The applicants are amazing. You really, I mean, to hear the student stories, it's incredibly impactful. The application period usually opens in February.
Yep.
Every year, so it'll be coming up very soon. So it's really it's a great one.
I appreciate the plug.
I'm
We're
a big
always looking,
fan.
again, to double down on that, I'm always looking for more folks to review, because we had a bit of a dip a few years ago, but now it's just been increasing, and I think with the dollar now, it will be increasing further, so that's why we had to revamp the portal, but it is a big lift just administratively, but also just to get enough people to review all these applications. So we'll be putting out the push here for in about next quarter. So if you want to pass that along, we're always looking for reviewers.
Thank you. Gary.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. And yeah, second and third, that sentiment, the wave, also application review team, it is something that I've enjoyed as well. Yeah. So Employment Security Department, so this session, we have about a couple dozen decision packages that the governor and OFM have greenlit for us. A lot of them are around things like unemployment insurance and paid family medical leave support, really trying to either shore up the administration of the UI program on one hand, or really finish full implementation of the paid family medical leave program on the other. So I won't talk in detail about those, but in terms of the workforce space, several things that I want you all to be aware of, I guess. One is economic security for all, so it probably wouldn't be a CAC meeting if I didn't talk about economic security for all at least once. So we have an ask in this year's session for about $9 million to continue supporting that program. Again, as you may recall, and maybe for some folks who are maybe newer to the group, economic security for all began with a governor's investment of WIOA statewide activities funds. Then the legislature stepped in, again, to provide a way for individuals at that time who were below 200% of the federal poverty level to engage in workforce training as a way of getting out of poverty. Legislature stepped in, and they started to sort of move that line to those who were just above 200% of the federal poverty level, to keep them from falling into poverty. They're determined at risk, right, of falling into poverty if they didn't have support. Over the past several years, we've added different things, right? So it started out as workforce training and support services. We had incentive payments, and then there became through the Community Reinvestment Fund partnership. So that Department of Commerce administers the monthly stipends of $1,000 a month for those who are successfully participating in program activities. On October 1st, we launched, I think I might have mentioned this at the last meeting, the matched investment savings account component of the program using community reinvestment funds as well. So that is a part of the program that allows individuals to do some asset building. So for every dollar that they put into this, what we call an MISA, community reinvestment fund dollars will match $2. So for every dollar, you get two, up to a maximum of a $10,000 buy-in, if you will, on the part of the participant. So if they're able to max out their $10,000 deposits into their account, they will end up with $30,000. So again, that's what X looks like today. So again, so hopefully we'll be able to move that forward.
I just wanted to outline for the EXA partnership with the colleges, a couple examples that we'll be highlighting in our nursing expansion planning report is the program, the local WDC North Central in this case has partnered with Big Bend and Wenatchee Valley Community College nursing programs and have put individuals who were previously in poverty, to qualify for this program all the way through completion of their RN degrees. So these two EXA participants who we're highlighting, have benefited from that support and the partnership between the colleges and the local WDC. And so now they're both employed. making RN level wages.
That's great. I was gonna ask about outcomes, if you've seen any outcomes.
Yeah, well, there's a June, and maybe I can send a link, but there is a June 2024 report. We do a quarterly report to the legislature. So that report is the last one that I've seen. I think there's probably one that will be due soon, right? Through September. I know that there are about, how much, there are more than 3,300 participants at this point. I think one thing that has impressed me, again, looking at the enrollment, we're again focus, not a requirement, but a focus on communities of color. And individuals who are unhoused. So right about now, I think 50% of the participants are people of color. Over 10% are unhoused. We're looking, because we also now have a focus on those who are justice involved, to see what kind of numbers we're getting there as well. Folks who are coming out of the criminal justice system and intervention program. But yeah, so again, $9 million ask for this session, keep that program going. Yeah, oh, I'm sorry, Manuel, did you have your hand up before?
Yes, I was curious, I saw, state guidance came through state guidance instruction came through for ESCA. And they listed the policy 7,000 revision 1. And the first bullet point read that likely to fall into poverty was taken out. Is there going to be any kind of fix for that?
I don't think it was, I think it was clarified more than taken out, because in the original policy, 7,000, that was just for individuals who were 200% of federal poverty level or below. Revision 1 was actually to incorporate that group that was just above poverty.
Okay.
And potentially likely based on the circumstances to fall into poverty if they didn't participate in the program or have the option of the program.
Because the response, because they bolded in that announcement, the response was, is the point of the program is to lift people out of poverty. So then it.
But that group is still being served.
It'll still
I'm
be,
sure.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you for that clarification.
Maybe I need to look at how we wrote the policy. But thank you, I'll take a look at that.
Thank you.
The other exciting thing for us, again, session still has to play out, but we have a $14 million ask to reestablish our justice involved employment services. So back in 2016, when Governor Inslee was new, he had an executive order establishing reentry services and directed employment security to start a reentry program, which we did. But right around 2018, 2019, the legislature stopped funding the program. It was all through a proviso. So we are hoping that this session, and Governor seems to be in favor, right? We've got reentry 2030, new executive order, and again, sort of a underscoring of employment security's mandate to provide workforce employment services. So again, $14 million ask to reestablish that program to move into the state prison system with reentry services. You may be aware that we currently have a federal grant with the Department of Labor and Department of Justice through the Bureau of Prisons to serve individuals coming out of the federal system in King County. It's called the PROUD grant. And that's been pretty successful for us. So we are hoping to, if we get the funding, use the PROUD grant sort of template for our state reentry program. So that's another ask we have there. And then finally, you're probably aware that we are replacing our workforce case management system with something called the Workforce Information Technology Replacement Project. So we are asking for, I think, about $14 million to complete that project. The completion date is November of next year. So far, so good. We've had a number of sprint reviews where developers, Launchpad, which is our vendor, have sort of unveiled the functionality of the system and components so we can see how it works, what it will do, and then critique it. So we think we're sort of in the last the 3-year project, the last year, so. Asking for the legislature to provide the funding to get across the finish line. So that's employment security, big ask this year.
No shortage of, no shortage of action.
No,
security.
and I think a challenging budget, I think that'll be the
Yes.
interesting thing, dynamic, right? It's one thing to be in the governor's budget, then of course the new governor, and who knows what their prerogatives will be. But also, yeah, I think the budget forecast is looking a little challenging, yeah.
Yeah, that is a really good point. Of course, as I think you all know, we will have a new governor. Next legislative session, we have a lot of legislative changes as well as we see a movement among long tenured legislators. Lots of staff changes as we tend to see, but also changes in our state's fiscal position. Concerns about the amount of revenue coming in, increased caseloads, as well, impacting that. And quite a lot of requests from state agencies, bargaining agreements that add to the cost.
Yep.
And so you can quickly see why there are some looming fiscal clouds in Olympia related to the state budget. So we're all attuned to that. So, okay, thank you, Gary.
I just, one question, Gary. So the request you mentioned around the technology or the
Workforce information technology.
yeah, is that the labor market information also that Annalise is working on?
Well,
Is it connected?
it's indirectly connected. So our workforce information technology replacement project has 2 components. One is the case management system, which is unrelated to the labor market piece. The other, though, is worksourcewa.com, which folks may be familiar with. It's basically the state's electronic labor matching system, principally. But our labor market information page information is connected to that site, as well as our agency main public facing page. So there's a couple ways to get to it. But one of the components of that worksourcewa.com replacement piece, the labor exchange piece, will include enhanced labor market information. I'll call it interactivity, for whether you're an employer or a job seeker using the system. So you can have that labor market information much more accessible as you're doing either your job orders or job search.
We've had a number of conversations with our workforce teams and ESD around the use of that information and how we can use it for program information. And regional work. So that 14 million then is required for that project to be actually completed.
For the full project, yes.
And Gary, you mentioned that the economic security for all, you have a quarterly report to the legislature. Not yearly reports real tough. Quarterly report. Let's not get into that habit. But would you mind, I know, but would you mind sending us the most recent one?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can send the link. Should I send that to Kim or?
Yes, yeah, or me. whomever.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, let's go to Gary.
Excellent, thank you. So obviously Commerce is a large agency and I won't be able to talk to every single department. As a reminder, we have energy, gun victim advocacy, we have housing, we have childcare, we have local government, we have a broadband office as well. So a lot of different agency priorities coming out from it, but at least from an OEDC, and OEDC is our office's acronym, that's Office of Economic Development and Competitiveness. As Paul has mentioned, we're kind of looking at it and we see, the same things going on with budgetary restrictions, forecasted revenue projections not coming up to, the same par. So it's going to be a more challenging legislative session for all. Just hang in there, keep through it, but it's a weird year. For us, we have multiple different programs that we're kind of pushing right now. We have 11 different decision packages just from OEDC. From the other divisions, one that I would highlight, that's kind of a larger issue that we're seeing throughout the whole community. Energy is looking at basically an office to help address the issues with permitting and speed up timelines with new energy generation projects. We recognize that there is basically a generation capacity issue coming up at the state, and that affects our work here at OEDC, where we're looking at competitive recruitment projects, retaining our businesses, expanding our businesses, we need to make sure that we have cheap, reliable electrons on the grid. And so that's part of OEDC's priority, along with energy, is to make sure that we're pushing out these projects that will keep the grid stable, get new transmission up online, and just generally solve the constraints that we're seeing. At least nationally speaking too, this is a national problem. Every state is running into massive electrical capacity issues, whether that's from their own generation or their transmission lines. So it's a bit of a hindrance on the economic development that we see. It's, you know, preventing us from completing some of these larger battery projects that are going around the country, preventing from other large manufacturing operations and other things like that. So we're waiting to see what happens. Obviously, CCA's on the ballot too, so that's a different approach too. So we'll wait and see what happens with that. But OEDC, we're focusing on at small business. We have a couple programs. We have a expansion of our small business disaster grant program, requesting 20 million for continuity in that program. So that helps us address local businesses that have been hit by natural disasters that are not covered by federal funding. We have capital access expansion too. So Commerce has partnered with Department of Treasury. We have what's called the Small Business Credit Initiative, SSBCI for short. This has different financing opportunities for small businesses and small to medium enterprises. We have an employee ownership program. So if companies are thinking about switching over into an ESOP for short. So that's like, you know, your Winco model in one way to, you know, if you're familiar with that business. And then we have different owner-employer financing programs for real estate, small business capital, and expanded the Washington Small Business Flex Fund as well. So we're continuing on that end. We're broadening startup services, continuing the investment into our Startup 365 page. So that's a resource for all small businesses and startup entrepreneurs to basically take courses, work through their business plan, cash flows, stuff like that. Circular economy, we have a request in there for additional support for the circular economy, industrial symbiosis programs. That's an existing grant program run by my colleague Kirk Esmond. Then we are on international representation, where inside of my role, a lot of what we do is we travel abroad, we work and try to bring new companies into the region, but we also rely upon representatives out in different areas. So we have coverage in South Korea, Taiwan, Japan. We cover part of the German market as well. We have a bit of support for Canada. And so we'd like to expand that, make sure that we have longer term representation over there. It takes a lot of long-term relationship building in these regions to build that kind of thing. We're also dealing with stiff competition from states like Texas, North Carolina, South Carolina, Alabama, Georgia, where there is a strong representation out there. They'll hold official offices and staff them with 5 to 10 people. So very different dichotomy that we're dealing with. If you're not familiar with it, Commerce also funds what's called the Associate Development Organizations, ADOs. They are economic development arms out in the community. And so we're requesting additional funding support for ADOs. It's been a reoccurring request on Commerce's end, and likewise from our partners at the Washington Economic Development Alliance, WEDA, where ADOs have not received much consistent funding increases. And yet they are the ones that manage, you know, with workforce development programs, working directly with community colleges, liaising with small businesses. They pass through grants through Commerce. So we're looking to additionally support our ADOs. We're requesting additional funding for a grant writer that supports ADOs to pursue more funding sources. And then we have basically a continuation and expansion of our industry sector leads and the Innovation Cluster Accelerator Program, ICAP. So those two are focusing on basically developing the clusters that we've already worked on, establishing new cohorts for them, and supporting the program through succession. So that's the main OEDC asks.
Very good. Eric, could you define, you use the term circular economy?
Yes.
Could you just talk a little bit more about what that means?
Right, so circular economy in the most broad sense is simply finding a new use for a waste resource. So whether that be For example, our forest products where we have sawmill waste, we have slash piles from forestry, logging operations. We're looking at using that in woody biomass products. So creating renewable natural gas or renewable fuels, biodiesel, or turning that into biochar, using that as a soil amendment in the Palouse to combat acidification. Otherwise, we're looking at, is it waste heat? Is it an aggregate material that we want to capture and combine into newer processes? We're looking at plastics into concrete. We're looking at different options. So basically, Kirk and his team, there's a larger push to create basically a map of waste resources and find a market for them. So we're looking to make sure that no resource goes to waste and it finds a second home, second use.
That's so cool. That's good.
And we're taking a lot of models from our colleagues go to Denmark to go to a specific industrial symbiosis park that has basically hydrogen generation, solar, waste heat capture, and food mass turned into renewable natural gas. So every business has an interlinkage to one another, capturing one's waste and turning it back into a product.
It's a good term too, circular economy. Yeah. That's great. And then how many ADOs are there? Because ADOs have been around for a long time.
ADOs have been out for quite some time. It is not one per county. There are some that hold multi-jurisdictional. So I don't remember off the top of my head. I think it's 28
I was gonna
ADOs.
say 28 or 29.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for example, like Chelan and Douglas County, the port of Chelan Douglas is the ADO out there. So they cover 2 counties under one. Spokane, Greater Spokane Incorporated, Greater Seattle Partners works with Seattle Metro Chamber. You've got Economic Alliance in Snohomish County. Well, those are kind of some of the larger names, larger counties.
Yeah. Heard about them also.
Yeah. ADOs are, if you're ever running, they're the main person who, when they say we have a workforce development issue, we have worker retraining programs we need. The companies usually come to the ADOs a lot of times first because they have that well-established relationship throughout the region.
Okay, any questions for Harry? Okay, great, thank you. And let's go to some of our partners. Marianne, do you mind if I put you on spot? Sorry,
yeah, no,
yeah,
it's like-
sorry, I apologize.
It's okay, good timing. We are, of course, always looking for, pieces of legislation that might have barriers for licensure. And in particular, there's been, a delay in licensure for some of the, Department of Licensing programs. Cosmetology, in particular, where students are waiting, there's a pretty big gap in being able to schedule an exam. And as you know, student retention, to retain the information, they graduate, they don't get that test right away. They start losing that information. And so that puts a barrier. So we're also looking at some of the language for instructors. Instructors, is a hot topic for a lot of different industries, and retaining instructors and also getting them licensed from other states. So the other thing that we're looking in support of are industry compacts. There's several that are kind of coming up with this next legislative session. Also in support of, any programs that are helping our students, any opportunities for funding, and collaboration with any other teams in resources for mental health. We continue to search for that. We offer, different trainings, mental health first aid, QPR, different things like that. But we're also in support of any other resources. And then, of course, any opportunity to collaborate, support what you all are doing. That's pretty much it for us. We're a little bit different. So,
Thank you. Any questions? Good. Let's go to our labor part of it.
Hi, so Washington State Labor Council, Manuel Flores, one of the things that I do want to share, kind of a little bit to what Gary was talking about, having kind of this coalition for change, Washington Coalition for Change, pardon me, is campaigning for a transition team in cabinet that mirrors Washington's democratic diversity. Some of the goals are things that they would like to meet, and we're encouraging people to sign on. to their petition. You can do so at wacfc.org. But their goals that they're trying to meet is at least 50% representation of Black, Indigenous, South Asian, Asian Pacific Islander, Native Hawaiian, and or Latino, Latina, Latine, Washingtonians in each cabinet. Recruitment that prioritizes historical marginalized communities, including people with disabilities, LGBTQIA plus individuals, women and gender non-conforming people, young people, veterans, and lower wage workers. High road business leaders who pay living wages and treat workers fairly should help guide some of these economic development choices that are being made, as well as they want each cabinet would like them to or must include individuals from the state's 5 poorest zip codes and counties and the 5 most racially diverse cities. And then also to include small women and people of color owned businesses have the more representation on that. So wanted to share that. That's one of the things they're encouraging and sending out through the stand and other places for people to sign on. As for other legislative things that they're working on, they are working diligently and getting ready for the session. So more to come.
Good, great. Thank you very much. By the way, you mentioned the stand. I subscribe to it. It's the Washington State Labor Council's regular newsletter that goes out electronically, and it's a good source of information. So if you're not subscribed to that, it's a good way just to see what's going on in the labor world, both in Washington State and across the country. So
want to give a shout out. Sarah Tucker is our now communications director, has just been promoted. Dave Rose has moved on to other things, and now she is the one and only person running the stand. So anytime you give a shout out, she deeply appreciates it. So thank you.
yeah, no, it's good. It's a lot of work goes into that. So great, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, let's go to our business colleague from the roundtable, Neil Strachey. Neil, if you're with us, do you want to give us an update on some of the roundtable's priorities for the 2025 legislative session?
Thank you, Paul. Obviously, this is going to be a difficult fiscal session, so we're cognizant of the things that cost money. But we just released a report in the last couple of weeks about the labor market in Washington and what opportunities are available to students. And the top lines of that report are that 1.5 million jobs over the next 10 years. And we've got shortages in all of the key areas of higher education, 4-year degrees, a smaller gap in associate's degrees, but a fairly large gap in the industry credentials, apprenticeships, that category. So we're looking at how do we enroll more students, how do we graduate more students, particularly in high demand fields. We identified 6 industry clusters that are the most in demand fields. No surprise, computer, business operations, healthcare, education, construction trades. Some of the things that we talk about a lot in the higher education system are still the most in demand fields. So we're looking at ways to enroll more students, graduate more students, and particularly in those high demand clusters. So this legislative session, particularly as it relates to community colleges, we're supporting the bill that was mentioned earlier to provide navigators. We really think that there's an opportunity for higher education to begin reaching out to students. I think in the higher education space, we've had this idea that we have all these wonderful institutions who are doing this great work, and there's a sense that students don't really know about some of the opportunities, the financial aid that's available to them, the great careers that are available to them, that we really need to be reaching out to students in high school and adults who are looking to upskill in their careers and let them know about the opportunities that are available. So the Navigator bill is pretty important to us. We are also going to be supporting a couple of other bills that makes the improvements that we've done to the Washington College Grant permanent. I don't know that a lot of people are aware that some of the improvements we've made to the college grant are just in a proviso in the back of the budget, that you know, those things are not guaranteed from one budget to another budget. So we feel like, you know, there's an opportunity to kind of lock that in and make those improvements permanent. That will give more assurance to students that those benefits will be available to them over the long term, and just provide more stability to that environment. You know, I think I'll stop there, but we're you know, we're sort of excited about the possibilities of moving these things forward, and happy to take any questions if people have them.
Any questions for Neil? The report that Neil mentioned was released about 2 weeks ago. It's called Skill Up for Our Future. I will send it out to everybody because the roundtable does good work in this area. And it really should help to inform you know, our needs in terms of education and training, but just get us thinking about, you know, needs 5-10 years down the road. Because you see a date like 2032, which is referenced in the roundtable report, you think, oh, well, that's, you know, that's not that far away, right? Particularly if we need to be graduating people, we need those folks to be entering higher education sooner than you might think. So even a date like 2032 is quite relevant to today. So I do encourage everybody, once you receive that roundtable report, to review it, because it's you know, based on solid research. So yeah. Good. Okay. Thank you, Neil. We appreciate your time there. Joe, Courtney, and Annette, any updates you want to share from your perspective, or shall we go get your fingers? No worries if you don't. That's okay. Yeah, no worries. And Courtney, anything you want to share?
No, I'm good. Sorry, I just took a bite of mango.
For catching people, right? Take a bite. So, okay. And then any updates from your point of view? Oh, you're on mute there, Annette.
Sorry, this technology, I tell you. I don't have any. Thank you for asking, though.
No problem. Okay, so we're a little bit early. I think our next section doesn't start until about 10:15. So
Yeah, I'll reach out and see if they're.
Yeah. So why don't we just take a break for a few minutes?
So portion of Washington.
Just to be clear, we're on a 15-minute break.
Yes, sir.
All right. Wasn't sure if everybody heard that.
Thank you. It's 16. Okay, well, I'm gonna turn it over to Wendy Fox, is at Durham Dean for workforce and economic development. Sorry, I knew there was something else in there. Thank you to Wendy and her team, who's assembled a great group of students and faculty and such to facilitate the next 90 minutes. So I turn over to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. First of all, I want to thank the committee for giving us the opportunity to highlight Olympic College both yesterday and today. Give you a little snapshot into what worker retraining and JSP specifically are doing on our campus, both to promote programs and to support students. Before we move too far, I want to formally introduce you to the two directors that helped us move about the county yesterday for our industry partner tours. Joelle Jensen is our interim director of program development and continuing education, and Lauren Pitt is our director of workforce grants. You've probably already met Amanda Pyle, who's our program director, been working you through this process and all the technical issues. As we, yeah, thank you. We love our team. We're so grateful. I want to start off by introducing you to Olympic College alum, former worker retraining student, and owner of Los Encantos One World Bakery, Paul Castro.
Hi, everybody. Right there. Well, I am a former, about 5 years ago, apparently, a student over here in the culinary program under Christopher Clemens and Robert Nash. And they helped us, they guided us through a huge amount of information that helped me start up a bakery that's just literally down the street. And our focus is on baked goods from around the world. So we're trying to encourage people to learn about other cultures and through food and become familiar with each other. And it doesn't need to be a matter of conflict or anything like that. But what got me started into the program was I did want to start a business and I wanted to come back to school, and I knew education was going to allow me to do that. And the funny thing was, I was trying my best because I have like 120 something credits in mathematics that I have from California. So I was like, I don't need to talk to a counselor. I already know how the game works. I know what things I need to do. I know what program I'm in. So I go and I talk to the person, and midway through, I told them that I got laid off from a contract that I had in Seattle as a construction worker. He's like, hold on a second. He left for like 10 minutes and then came back. He's like, I need you to talk to somebody. So I went and talked to Ellen Handyside. And she walked me through the steps of getting in contact with ESD, speaking with them. And basically from that point on, the program helped me financially to complete the culinary program. So I have an ATA as a sous chef, for whatever that means. And yeah, I've been doing ever since I graduated. COVID conveniently happened, and I started the business, and it's been rocking and rolling since 2020. And we've been doubling revenue every year, so that's a really great thing. But I know I couldn't have done it without the education that I got here at Olympic College, and the program was, especially with COVID happening, just I know I couldn't have done it properly or as in sync as I did, which allowed me to open up the business directly after graduating, et cetera. So I just really appreciate you guys on that. But since then, what we have done is we have worked with other restaurants around the area. We have done things for the community. We've donated to the community. We have just in general, we are trying to make or establish ourselves as the community bakery. And by that, I think that we get a lot of people that would otherwise not know what certain breads are, what certain countries are. I have people the other day go up to my bakery and try to show off of how many different flags they know that's posted on my wall. So it's a great thing that I know that, Olympic College definitely helped me, especially the chefs, definitely Alan, who, continuously encouraged me to keep on going. And ever since then, even now, I run across people that are trying to interview for the job and they're not qualified. And instead of destroying their dreams, I tell them about this program and how much it helped me. And how much it helped me financially and how much it could help them, because some people, it's harder for them to find jobs than others. And I know if they got the education just like I did, they would be able to go ahead and get themselves that job or, start their own business or whatever it might be. And I think there's a lot of people that have that desire, but they just don't know the resources that are out there. So I've actually volunteered and said, if you guys have any flyers or pamphlets or anything, I'll post it at my bakery because of how much it really helped me. So thank you guys for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. I have, it's now a part of my life and I'm there nearly, it's the cliche of, oh yeah, I'm gonna start my business and now I have absolutely no time. So there's that. So hopefully other people can be impacted the way that this program has impacted me. And I appreciate your time.
Where is the bakery located?
It's off of 15th and Callow. It's 2712 15th Street.
Retail shop.
Yeah.
I just put it in my
What does
phone.
it say local time today?
You can, yes, you can. It's Tuesday, yes.
What's the favorite, most popular these days?
It really depends on the day and the person. Like, I always tell people, not one size doesn't fit all. So, some people absolutely love pan de coco, which is a Filipino bread. And then some people just absolutely hate coconut. So it's just, I can't really say that this one size fits all, but a fair,
What's yours then?
all of them. Right now, it's the Russian dark rye, and then also the focaccia. Those two things I can.
I have to give it to you, your log approach was really good. I live close by to your bakery.
Awesome.
Walk down and pick up bread.
There you go. Yeah,
It's a nice little community thing, right?
I appreciate that.
And he has some spicy breads that are very good too, so jalapeno bread, so, yeah.
Sounds like we'll be making a visit.
Longer break for lunch, Paul.
Yeah, right.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lauren. I just want to thank again. So I found out about Paul through one of our transition coordinators, letting me know that he was referring people to our program. And so one of the first things we did was reach out to him about our advisory committee. And we are so excited. I just like to note that Paul attended his first culinary advisory committee meeting yesterday. And so we are so excited that he is giving back to our community in so many ways. So for the next student that I need to introduce, it's my honor to introduce a non-typical student, both for the worker retraining program and community colleges in general. So this student is an educated and accomplished professional with an impressive resume and extensive experience. I learned that she has done work to raise money to build community schools and homes for people. I learned that she has a passion for helping women and also for lifelong education, as evident by her numerous, I think 10 at least extra certificates, from empowering women against violence to strategic plannings with institutions. The worker retraining program, as we know, is less about where you have been and more about where you are going. So it's about life transitions and about retraining for a new career. And this is exactly what this student needed, was a chance to start again. So without wanting to take too much away from her story and knowing that nothing is, of course, better than hearing from the student themselves, it is my honor to introduce Ms. Riveras Julia.
Good morning. My name is Maria Carolina Rivas Julia. I'm from the Dominican Republic, and I always say that my English is not good at all, but I'm trying. I knew about the worker retraining program because I am taking ESL classes. That was the way I learned, and for me to get into the ESL classes was pretty hard because I feel the necessity that I need to learn English. I need to improve my English, but I didn't know what to do at this time. And somebody just told me about the Olympic College. But before that, I went to the hospital for 3 months because I have a premature baby, and was so hard to me because I couldn't understand what the doctor was saying, and I have to use like translation all the time, and was a hard time. And then when I heard about the program, I went to the website and contacted the teacher, and I started the ESL classes in fall 2023. And then I hear about the nursing assistant program, and I was, oh, that's so exciting. I want to do this because I have a great experience with the nurses in the hospital. That was a big support for me, and they really care. And I want to do this. And then I reached out to worker retraining, but at this time I wasn't working. And it was so hard, and but I didn't have a car neither to get here. And well, it was hard. I was grieving because I lost my daughter at this time too, but I want to do something. And I was just doing my English online. Then in April 2024, somebody reached out to me and say, do you want to do this still? And I was, yes, I want. And at that time, somebody sold me a car, and I get a car, and I was, this is the perfect time. And then, well, I knew I have a big barrier because of my English, but I'm gonna take the risk and I'm gonna do it. And yes, then I went through the program, they approved like the money and everything. And then, yeah, I talked with the teacher and I explained my condition. I'm not good at English and I have to do a lot of essay and I have to write in Spanish, then translate and then ask somebody, can you please check this if that work is okay? And they say, yes, it's okay. And I graduate with great qualification and good comment from my teacher. And also for the mock interview, I get a job the same day I done with my class. And it's amazing because now I'm working as a CNA for visiting angels, and that really changed my life. I think I have something to do. And even when I have my bachelor degree in the Dominican Republic in psychology, here I couldn't do anything with that, anything with all my experience. And I was so frustrated about, I like to study and I want to continue. And I'm so grateful for the work and retraining program. Now I'm working and I'm serving the community and I want to do more in the future. Thank you so much, Olympic College. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. We're about to Leah.
Yeah.
Olympic College is robust healthcare division. You've heard about some from Marty yesterday. Here at our Bremerton campus, we currently accept over 300 students in our nursing, medical assisting, and physical therapist assisting programs. This is important work because the healthcare professional shortage, we have been designated a healthcare professional shortage area by the Federal Health Resources and Services Administration, Kitsap County has. Our partnership with the Kitsap County Board of Commissioners and Virginia Mason for Franciscan Health to build a new regional health sciences hub at our Paulsboro campus will allow us to expand our capacity in our current programs and offer additional certificates and degrees for new allied health programs. Across our campuses, work is being done on this expansion to serve our students, our local employers, and our community. And I'd like to introduce the person at the center of these program initiatives, our Dean of Nursing and Allied Health, Dr. Alicia Knight.
Much. I appreciate getting the chance to talk to all of you. I just want to say I also was an Olympic College graduate. This college changed my life over 3 decades ago. I had 3 little kids. My husband was enlisted in the Navy and we'd moved here, and I knew that if I didn't get into workforce, the lives of my children would be different. We wouldn't have the income that we have. And so I'm very grateful for this college. And so to come back in a different capacity and be able to hopefully impact other people in the community, it's really kind of centers me on the last part of my career, so to speak, because you can tell by my hair, I'm sort of towards the end of my career. I certainly want to make a difference not only within the community, but in the lives of people coming here and the advantages that we have in Olympic College. So I don't know, Amanda, if you're trying to get up the PowerPoint. But I'll just talk a little bit about back in 2023, actually, I think it was the spring of 2023, Kitsap County was declared in a healthcare crisis by our public health district. And so from that, I received a lot of outpouring from our community partners that was like, this is where we're at with the healthcare shortage. And so I use that information based on clinical partnerships on, well, what do we need in our community and how will we be able to support the community long-term with the healthcare crisis? And many of that was, number one, was expanding, and I've expanded our nursing programs to offer more graduates to our community. That's the first thing I did. Second thing I did, and this is actually predating that, was I expanded our programs and added new programs on, in particular, looking at our veterans of our community. My husband was a corpsman, so if anybody or prior military, you know that corpsmen, Army medics, Air Force medics, they have a lot of experience in the military. And they don't really get the advantage of using that prior learning in a college setting. And that was one of the downfalls of my husband. Every time we transferred, he'd start trying to get some of the prerequisites done, but they never gave him any credit for all of the work that he was doing. Over the last, several years, I've worked with not only the state board, but also the national board of the college, the nursing council, to develop a program specific to veterans. And so we developed the veteran LPN to BSN program. We're on our 4th cohort now. So veterans, the Army medics come out of Army school with an LPN license. So we bridge their program so they can use that get experience and get their RN license and a bachelor's degree all at the same time. So I'm pretty proud of that program. So they now have a guided pathway using their existing experience to be able to accomplish that. Very proud of that program. The second program that we just launched this summer was the Corpsman Medic Bridge, that they didn't qualify for an LPN license in Washington State. So these are the folks, corpsmen don't come out of school with LPN equivalency. And so, I couldn't argue with the National Council of State Boards of Nursing that we should just give them this. So I had to develop a program that looked at what deficits they had and then created this bridge program. So our current practical nursing program is 4 quarters long. So we were able to help our corpsmen and our medics with a 2-quarter program of that 4-quarter program. So in 2 quarters, they come out with the ability to sit for the LPN license, and they can get out and work. And so in addition to the LPN to BSN program with that veteran component, they can even come back and again, get their RN license along with their bachelor's degree. So that is the 2 newest programs that we developed in the meantime. So we can move forward. Sorry, I sort of wanted to get us going. So again, I'm going to talk about our future programs. I talked a little bit already about how we're choosing these programs. That's based on clinical partnerships and their input on what the shortages are, along with workforce development has certainly given me data to say, yes, I'm validating what they're saying. And then we have a phase 1 and phase 2 development plan, and then how we're going to be successful in that. So we can go forward. Several new reasons why we're developing it. I already sort of mentioned a lot of these bullet points. So we'll move forward with that. The Poulsbo campus. So right now, how many of you have been to the Poulsbo campus? I want to get a sense of my audience. Okay, so not all of you have been there. It's beautiful, number one, if you haven't been there. There's one existing building right now, this gray colored building. It's about 40,000 square feet. And since COVID hit, we've seen a decline in students coming to that campus. And, you can imagine if we've got this beautiful campus and we really don't have students coming back from COVID, we want to know how can we build this campus to serve not only new programs, but let's make it multidisciplinary. The goal would be that we would have a healthcare science campus that right when they're students, they can start kind of getting to know, well, what does a physical therapist assistant do? What does a radiology technology do? And how does that impact me if I'm a nursing student? So we're trying to build this campus where from the get-go, we're talking about safety and how to communicate with other disciplines. So that's the exciting thing about this expansion. The first phase is we're going to take this existing building and we're going to create 3 new programs. We're going to create surgical technologist program, our radiology technology program, and our diagnostic medical sonography program. So that's the first phase that we're in right now, is accomplishing that. And those are planning to launch in fall of 2025. So that is the goal. And we're on our pathway to doing that. Construction is going to be going on during the winter and spring quarters, maybe a little bit into summer to be launching those programs. So we have people in seats fall of 2025. The phase 2 expansion, which is this double the size, so around 80 to 90 square foot building, bringing all of allied health and healthcare all to Poulsbo campus. And I'll talk about our current programs. And one of them is the nursing assistant. So we want to have them all into this new building along with 5 new additional programs. So dental hygiene, dental assisting, paramedic program, along with an EMT program, and lastly is respiratory therapy. And then we're going to pull nursing up into this campus, as well as physical therapy assistant and medical assisting, as well as our newest, which is phlebotomy, all up into this Poulsbo campus. The last thing I'm going to say is we also want to build, because we know access is a big problem right now for our community. People can't get into their dentist. People can't get in to see a primary care provider. And more importantly, people that are more low income can't get into those folks. So we want to create also in that building a dental clinic for low income, a primary care clinic as well. And then we also would like a wraparound, which is mental health services. So that would be the ideal goal, is to have those wraparound support services at that campus where local community members are coming and our students are being able to rotate through those clinics. So it's kind of a win-win situation for our community and our college setting. We had to do some financial analysis and look at the cost. These are expensive programs. Anybody that's in a program of healthcare knows that it's a costly program. And so one of the key perks is it's going to be a pipeline into our prerequisites as well. So that will hopefully offset some of those costs, knowing that we're bringing people in. We also know that there's accreditation, because all of our healthcare pathways will have an accreditation arm, which is also quite expensive. And then looking at obviously faculty, what other support services like student services, facilities management, security, library resources. We'll have to think about that as we're expanding as well. It's not just building a program, it's looking at that wraparound support to keep people here at this college. So we've looked at all of that and we can move forward. We also looked at market analysis with our, obviously our workforce development experts. So we'll talk a little bit about that, as well as our clinical support partners. We had to look at funding. Where are we going to get phase 1? We've got phase 1 already actually secured with funding from not only our own college put in some money, but Franciscan Health, Virginia Mason Franciscan Health put in $2.5 million, as well as our Kitsap County commissioners had a project. They gave us $6 million to be able to start on that project. So we're fully funded for the first phase. Okay. So looking at expanding, so we'll move forward. Our current pathways, I just wanted to kind of give you a visual that we have several pathways for growth in nursing. So again, you can come to Olympic College and start with a nursing assistant. And if you want to end up with a bachelor's degree, we have that right here. So we wanted to make sure that we have a guided pathway for those folks that wanted to come in. So you can see that here. We also, on the other side, have the allied health. We have physical therapy assistant program, medical receptionist, billing and coding, medical assisting, all the way to get your associate's degree. And we now currently have a phlebotomy program, which has 2 pathways. One for folks that are like, hey, I'm a nursing assistant and I want to try something new. I can come in 1 quarter, go out and be working as a phlebotomist in a lab, making upwards to around $49,000 a year starting out. So we developed that pathway that started this fall quarter. The other pathway to that phlebotomy is a 2-quarter program. So you're like, I need a new job. Maybe I was displaced in some way. I can come back and in 2 quarters, without any healthcare experience, become a phlebotomist. So that's another pathway that we did. Okay. So out of these future phase 1 pathways, we've already completed the phlebotomy. We've already done the Corpsman Medic Bridge program. That's done. The 3 new ones will be surgical tech, rad tech, and a diagnostic medical sonography starting in fall of 2025. Phase 2, move on to the next one. This is those 5 additional pathways. We're trying to secure funding right now for that brand new building that anybody knows in this room is a pretty lofty goal. So we might have to think outside the box and start some of these programs somewhere else, maybe on this campus, until we can get that building built. But that is our goal, to continue on as we secure funding. So this kind of looks at our workforce data to sort of say, you know, why we're doing what we're doing and how these folks that are coming in, people like me, who wants to change their lives, their families' lives, how much income they will make to sort of solidify. These are really viable programs for folks wanting to really change their lives. So you can see if you're a corpsman wanting to become an LPN, roughly they make around $70,000 a year, a pretty good decent wage. And there's a projected growth for at least 10% within this area. And many people hire LPNs. We're one of the good things about our community is they do see LPNs as a viable profession. And you know, if you know anything about nursing, LPNs kind of have this ebb and flow of need where, oh, all of the healthcare facilities want LPNs and no, now we're not going to have LPNs. We're lucky here in this community, LPNs has been a very viable profession. And you can see how many job postings. Phlebotomists, again, I guess I was off about 2,000, but so about $47,000 per year, a good income, and there's a projected growth for this particular pathway. The closest that we have is Bates and Clover Park to be able to get this particular certificate. And there is a job opening. We're working with our labs currently in our community who have already supplied us with clinical placement for our newest students that are here today. Surge Tech. Right now, they're at St. Michael, they're getting upwards to $35,000 on a sign-on bonus. I don't know about you, but I could use that chunk of change. So this is in demand right now, and actually the growth is a little bit off because I don't know if you know this, maybe you do. A lot of hospital systems don't actually put job postings out to say they need 100 new employees, that this doesn't look so well. So you might see one job posting and they actually want to fill several positions with that. So it's a little skewed because again, if you see that they're offering this amount of money, you know they're desperate, if that gives you an idea. So they come out making a good decent wage as well. Many people hire surgical tech, anything to do with an OR and a procedure, they're going to be using surge techs. And you can see the closest folks is Clover Park and Renton to us. So we already have guarantees. Actually, we've been working and we have an MOU with our local facility they actually have, can you designate slots for us that we want to send people to? So we've got that also as an aspect. Rad techs make really good money. Again, roughly around $83,000 per year starting out. There's a projected growth for this. And you can see that our closest partner is TCC, who, when talking to them, they have a wait list a mile long. So even though we are in competition, there's a lot to be said for our community not being able to have the rad techs that they need to be able to, again, function in a healthcare system. So we're looking forward to that. Ultrasound or diagnostic medical sonography, really good money, about $104,000 a year on average, 17% growth. You can see who hires them, and TCC right now is on a hiatus. I'm imagining some of you know that. That program has been halted. I don't know exactly when they're going to restart that program back up, but it's a high demand field that people are knocking at our doors already to find out when we're going to be launching this program. Respiratory therapy, about $86,000 a year, a projected growth of 14%. Anybody that has any respiratory situation will need a RT, and TCC does have a program as well, so that's our biggest competition, but the job market is there for our community. Dental hygiene. Boy, don't miss your dental hygiene, your cleaning appointment, because it's going to be hard to get into that. So again, this is a really high paying program. Graduate that comes out of this program will make roughly around $111,000 per year. And the projected growth, even with this new program, we will not be able to solve the problem of the future deficits in dental hygienists. So we're hoping to make a dent in it, at least for our community. And you can see the closest competition is Pierce for us maybe. And then the job market is just ready and available for any graduates that we have from this program. Dental assisting, we again want to make a guided pathway. So you want to come in and maybe start out as dental assistant. We want to give you some credit. And so if you decide that you want to come back, you have that opportunity. So we're building that program to map that out. So those folks will get credit for the things that they're doing. You can see right now, it's about a $50,000 a year on average for dental assistants. And there is some growth. Right now, there's not a lot of regulation. I don't know if you know this on dental assisting. And so a lot of people are getting on the job training. A little scary, because how are we going to bridge those people that do want to grow and didn't go through our dental assisting program? So I'm starting to kind of ruminate about how we can help those folks to come back. I don't want to leave anybody off that kind of thought process of workforce and how we can help them grow. But that is another program that we're going to be launching. Paramedic program, our fire chiefs in Kitsap County and spread beyond even on the Olympic Peninsula, because there is no paramedic program here in our community. And from what I'm hearing from them, and again, this is not to say anything negative, but it's just the realities of getting feedback from my community partners is they're not happy with TCC. And so they want to build their own program, again, locally, and spread that through the peninsula. Because right now they're sending a lot of their folks that want to be paramedics to Boston for some reason. Maybe it's an online program. And so they're really wanting us to start this actually yesterday. And so I'll be launching, getting that paramedic program going soon to get the developer and the community involved in that development of that program. EMT, again, another bridge. So if you want to come in as an EMT, it's a shorter program. You don't need a lot of prereqs. You come out making pretty decent money. And this obviously can be a bridge. An EMT can come in then and get credit and go into the paramedic program. So again, we wanted that guided pathway. So this just going to give you a brief overview. I'm sorry, I'm taking too much time, I can see, about the length of time for each one of these programs. And how much we forecast, enrolling. So again, some of them will start with a 20 launching of students, but then by that second year, it's then 40 because we have a first year and a second year cohort, if so to speak. So at the end, we're gonna, be, every year additionally having about 210 graduates going out into healthcare and making a difference in people's lives. And then lastly, this just looks at, is that the last one? Thank you so much. This looks at how many prerequisites you would need. Clearly, the dental hygiene has I don't know if anybody knows about the Commission of Dental Assisting Program accreditation body. They have a lot of lift in getting qualified to even get into that program, and that's based on their standards. We want to be accredited, so we're going to fall within that. Because of the heavy lift of these prerequisites, we've decided to make it a bachelor's program, because by the end, even if we made it an associate's, we're not doing them any favors because they end up with the credits, if that makes sense. So that program is going to be a little bit more of a lift for folks wanting to get into that. And I just want to explain why, if you were curious, why did you do that? Why didn't you do an associate's to get them quicker launched? Really, there isn't. Because again, the prerequisites, they already have so many prerequisites. Why would we do that to them? Plus, I need teachers in that program, and you have to have a minimum of a bachelor's degree. So again, thinking kind of ahead of all of those different dominoes based on what we have here. So I think that's it. I hope I answered all of my objectives. Is there any questions that anybody has?
Just thank you for what you're doing. This is really amazing. You're filling a critical need in this community. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your acknowledgement.
I was just gonna say, I would love a copy of this, just for the data points, and specifically with legislators in this here on the Kitsap Peninsula asking questions, and it's tremendous information. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Absolutely. I do want to thank you for bringing that legislative piece up. I do want to give a huge shout out to Greg Nance and Senator Hansen, who actually went last year to vie for funding for 2 faculty positions for 2 of the phase 1, which is Surge Tech and Surge Tech and Rad Tech, faculty, 2 faculty members for that program. So thank you. I want to acknowledge that. Yes.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, it's a compelling model that you put on board here. Are there other of your peers across the CTC system that you observe maybe exploring the same type of model for creating allied health campus and concentrating, focusing the disciplines in one?
I will say that TCC has a health science building.
I think we see a lot of those.
Yeah, I don't know if they're using the same kind of like, I want a clinic, I want to, really kind of support the community in a well-rounded way. I don't necessarily know unless somebody else knows of that kind of model. If you've ever been to Jamestown, which is I think it's the Suquamish tribe, I think it's in Sequim. I really like their model of how they do wraparound services for their community members. So I want to give them credit too for kind of thinking that way. I think CTC system has to think differently than they have in the past. We are not going to sustain unless we're thinking out of the box, using community partners and to help with the funding. Number one, these are expensive programs. We're going to have to be partnering with those folks in order to sustain these programs. So that is our goal in mind, is to really say, look, this is a heavy lift. The community needs it. You need it. We need it. How can we work together? So I don't know if anybody else is thinking that way, but we at Olympic College are definitely thinking that way.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I know you're working with Allied Health in terms of figuring out the demand and things like that. Are you also work with them on like curriculum and keeping current, like what are the current demands? So that can be a challenge sometimes in making sure that the staff are teaching the skills that are in.
Yeah, no, that's a great question because, textbooks are like behind the evidence by the time you get them in your hands. So absolutely, we have advisory groups, thanks to our workforce folks to help getting those launched, where those community partners are in on advising us on our curriculum, our placement, how, again, thinking outside the box, how things are going, what we can do to support you. So we use that advisory group to kind of help facilitate that. We also ask them to come to our curriculum meetings. So they're actually on the ground floor of changes that are coming from either feedback from our students, feedback from evidence. So yeah, we are kind of making sure that we're up to date on all of, and they tell us. Sure. We ask them, how are our graduates doing? Are they entry level ready? And if not, what can we do to support that? There's nothing worse than, having graduates that aren't ready and prepared. So, yeah.
I'd just like to point out, you have some great data on the available jobs that were listed in Indeed. And for the folks who are at the table who may not understand the ways that she's broken it down, within 5 miles of Bremerton, great numbers for people who want to stay on this side of the water. Within 10 miles of Bremerton, we're bringing in Port Orchard, parts of Paulsbo. When you get to 25 miles of Bremerton, you're starting to rope in some of Seattle.
Yep.
And so those numbers are really important to understand when you're looking at that side of the slides.
And we are on the Paulsbo master plan. So I think, because that kind of made me think, I didn't mention, we're on the Paulsbo master plan because housing is going to be an issue. We need to be thinking again, long-term, not just about producing these programs, but how are people going to get affordable housing, right? You start going into North Kitsap, it gets a little higher when it comes to that. And how are we going to get folks who maybe live in Bremerton to the Paulsbo campus? So now you're thinking about transportation, working with our Kitsap Transit to make sure that we have a well-oiled machine where we're making sure that we're getting people where they need to go to get educated. As well as our other campuses. And we think about Shelton area and things like that. We could do better, I can tell you that. And we must do better. If we're really going to serve the people that we say that we're going to serve, we have to work with our partnerships to, again, think about that kind of rounded experience.
I had a question on some of the data that you're talking about with the wages and stuff. Do you all use like the Alice calculator? UW has a calculator on like, this is what a livable wage for a single adult with a child, like what it would cost them to live to be self-sustaining, not adversely impacted or constrained. Is that used in?
That's a good question. I'm gonna look to my workforce folks.
Yes, yes, we do. And so part of the work that we do when Alicia and her team came to us and said, we really want to start these programs, can you help us with some labor market data? We do that research, and then that is then compared against on the KETA website, Kitsap Economic Development Alliance. They have a link that can show us what it would cost for a person, whether it's a single person, a single parent with one child, two working parents with children, what it would cost for them to live. And so we can compare the wages that Alicia represented. When we're talking with students who need funding, we can say, okay, if you are a single parent and you're looking to get into the labor market and you need to support yourself and your child within a certain amount of time, that your funding won't be exhausted by the time you get your training, we can steer them in the right direction. And so, yes, we do offer that to them, and we talk with the students one-on-one about that, depending on their goals and her on-ramp programs that lead to possibly bachelor's programs as well.
Yeah, these programs, they're fantastic. Like, thank you for the report too. I really want to recognize that. And the data, it's always the question of, right, like, well, the end of it, right? They get this fantastic quality training, and then are they getting to that quality job at the end of it as well? That's going to be economic self-sufficiency as well. So thank you all for the work that you're all doing.
Yeah, you're welcome. And you know, that brings me to another point that I didn't bring up. And I'm thinking about my community partners, and at one of our local meetings that we had, because this county is working collectively on working together to figure out how to help with the healthcare crisis. One of the big issues after that people graduate and get into their employment, can you think of one thing that is like the deficit out in our community after they get the job that they would need to be able to support themselves? They've got this income. Housing's one, I mentioned that already. What's the other thing? Childcare. So that's the biggest deficit too that we have is childcare. The other, I forgot to mention, that's my other goal, is to have a daycare center on that campus that we could even partner with our hospital systems and other clinics where they're struggling with their employees having childcare access. So they could help fund it, right? And it's a win-win situation balancing that. That would be the ideal, is if we could do that. That has not been pulled off that I know of, where you're partnering with folks outside of the community college setting to help with that process. Yes.
Have you all had a chance to connect with the childcare task force? I mean,
No, but I think we should.
Yeah, they pulled together a lot of like agencies, labor, community partners, just stakeholders, like, because it's an interest of everyone. Business, like, everyone's interested in it, because, right, like, we don't have that, we can't necessarily go to our job or the things that we're learning, right?
Right.
But it might be a group, they're trying to also address training, making it a way, a quality job as well.
Awesome.
And in addition to any of the childcare deserts that exist. I have teens now, so I made it out.
I made it out.
I made it out of teenhood yet, but yeah.
But wait till you have grandkids and right back in. So so I'm speaking for myself, but yeah, I think you know, it really, I think for me, when I came to this college, that was my biggest barrier. Was my kids, you know, what am I gonna do? And I will give a shout out, I'm just trying to be grateful when I can, when a fleeting moment comes, is the YMCA really helped me during that time. They had an after kids program. I think we could partner even with them, because again, if it wasn't for that, I don't know how I would have been able to successfully complete my prerequisites here. And give me that sense of like safety and comfort that my kids were being taken care of. It's not like I would never want to just put my kids somewhere where I didn't feel safe. So we want to create that. So I'll find out maybe through somebody who, okay, because that, thank you for that. I didn't even think of that.
If they need to train people, they have a job skills program. They could leverage, I'd imagine. Yes, I'm in.
Yeah, I can get you information.
Okay.
Task force. The other thing is that we had Bish Paul from the Gates Foundation meet with our presidents during their last meeting. Marty was there.
Okay.
And they are very interested in this topic of childcare on college campuses. And so it might be worth maybe a side conversation we can have to see if the state board can help that.
That would be great. I mean, if we could model somewhere like this for all of the CTC school systems, I mean, this is the future. Like, if we really want, for one thing, the learners have changed, right? We all have heard these things. And the learners are demanding things that we should have been. I'm a Gen Xer, oh, roll up my sleeves, I'm a latchkey kid kind of deal, take care of myself. To now we have the new learners who are like, no, that's not okay. And we really need to look to that and say, how can we support and really balance people out more in the world than we did in our generations. I mean, we suffered so much. We have to find a different way approach of, making a more quality of life for people. Yeah. Okay, that's it for me. I'm sure I'm taking up too much of your time.
Thank you, Alicia. We appreciate you being here and all of your work. I wanted to mention that during Alicia's speech, she mentioned many times the importance of our community partners. And we could not do this work without our WorkSource partners, and they are here to share how they have worked with us to advance students. So I want to just take a moment to introduce Mike Robinson and Ed Luby. Mike is the WorkSource administrator from Employment Security Department's Workforce Services Division, and Ed is the WorkSource one-stop collaborator, coordinating partner efforts aimed at support for clients. That particular WorkSource covers Clallam, Jefferson, and Kitsap counties, providing services with 2 comprehensive American job centers, WorkSource Clallam and Swim, and WorkSource Kitsap and Silverdale. In addition to all ESD programs, they are also the WIOA Title I provider. Mike, go ahead.
Thanks, Wendy. Great to be here, and I'm sure everybody's familiar with the Employment Security Department and our connection with the one-stops in our state. ESD is the subrecipient of our WIOA Title I funds for this area. And so Wendy had asked me to come talk to you and share how we partner. So what I can say is I like to think back before COVID and how great life was. We had a really robust relationship, and COVID hit hard, right? It hit the school, it hit the WorkSource centers. And as soon as we identified that gap, we worked with Wendy and Teresa to get a little better collaboration. And so now what we have is mutual passing of staff. We have our case managers come here to the college a couple times a month to meet with people that are in worker retraining, not just worker retraining, but it could be anybody that would be interested in the WIOA program. And that's really been helping get more people in. Additionally, Olympic College has worker retraining staff come over to the WorkSource Center, and they present in our orientation. So it's a great way to bridge both programs. And we also do that with Peninsula College. So we see a real big value there. We'll let Ed talk about the referral tool, because I think you were interested in that. I'll talk more about just the specifics of our program. So, and I'm going to assume most here then are familiar with EXA. Seeing a few nods, and that's the Economic Security for All program. We run that as well. And and then of recent, a Commerce Grant, Community Reinvestment Funds. We are a subrecipient of that. And those are 2 really valuable programs that not only, I heard how funding and challenges for things, and we know daycare is not cheap. We now have programs with these 3 types of programs through the WIOA dislocated worker and adult program, but also this EXA program and the CRF, where it can pay for things that traditionally WIOA dollars would not fund. So that has really been a huge lift. But one of the key components is there are incentives within these programs. And based on, hitting milestones in both programs, participants are getting anywhere between, it depends on the incentive, it could be a $500 incentive, up to $1,000. That's all within the EXA program. Within the CRF, and again, that's through Commerce. This program not only gives $1,000 a month for an incentive, but we're also preparing a match savings program. So it's a 2-to-1 ratio. So for every $2 we'll add, so they can get up to $20,000. This is to help lift people out of poverty. And all these supports along the way, what we're finding is people are using some of these incentives to problem solve some of the barriers that they've traditionally had. And so it's really been a great collaboration. Currently, we have just over the last program year, we have 22 worker retraining participants that we're working with. Outside of that, I mean, we have a lot of participants who may attend in some other fashion. What else do I want to add? And then, the other thing is, so when the students are moving towards graduation, we have a business navigator. This person is set up to be able to create work opportunities for the participants. And that could be in a WEX, basically a paid internship, or an OJT. And so they're out there talking to businesses, working with the students or the participants in the program, trying to get those connections and either getting them into a work-based learning, or just simply transiting into reemployment. That program has just started within the year. We're hopeful. Are there any Commerce folks? Great. We're loving it, and we're really hoping, that we see this continuation, but it's been really successful so far. We're seeing a lot of great success with the participants, whether worker retraining or not. We try to maximize our co-enrollments for all our programs. So somebody may come in and they think that, they heard of WIO and they walk away. No, you're going to be eligible for the WIO, the EXA, and the community reinvestment. And so we're maximizing funds to help people move through. So that's what I'm going to pitch, and then Ed will cover the other part. Okay. And I'll take questions after, I guess, if you have any.
He'll take the questions. So I'm Ed Luby. I'm the one-stop operator for the one-stop center of WorkSource here. And I'd like to touch on part of what Mike said. The cross partnership that's been developing and redeveloping, especially since pandemic, has been really valuable. Having the OC folks in our office, especially when we're doing the WYOA orientation, has been incredibly valuable, because those students get to come in, those potential students get to come in, talk to someone right off the bat, keep their momentum forward, because so often they get bulk information, they go home, it dies on the vine. But if they can actually talk to someone from OC, figure out what that path looks like going forward, then they can actually keep that fever popping and keep them moving forward. And with us coming over here, really what it does is it exposes those students who may have stopped with just getting the worker retraining funds. It exposes them to the other services that we can offer, because we can do a lot of wraparound services. If we have someone who comes in with a disability, and a disability could be a physical disability such as mine, it could be blindness, deafness, it could be PTSD, it could be emotional, it could be a neurodivergent. We have a DVR representative there in the office. We have LNI representatives. We have veterans representatives. And those are things that they may not have been exposed to if we hadn't had this partnership. We hadn't had this ability to cross-reference to each other, which brings up the tool that Mike talked about. We have a tool at WorkSource, which is part of our intake process at this point, where as we go through with the customer and we identify what kind of parameters they meet, it'll actually populate a list at the bottom of other programs that they may be applicable, be able to apply to. And when they're done with that list, they can check off ones that they're interested in, including childcare. We have one listed for childcare. Well, they'll get a list to our childcare urgent trauma center thing. I don't know what to call it, but it's a phone center for childcare here in Kitsap County. And when that button is clicked, then all those people get emailed and say, hey, we have someone at our desk that might be able to fit to your programs. So it expands our ability to serve exponentially. Other things that we talked about, being able to identify the in-demand occupations and develop training programs around that. That is huge. The Olympic Workforce Development Coalition, which is what we're a part of, what OLI is part of, and we're a part of that as well with WorkSource. We have a whole strategic plan built out around future occupations that are come up, in demand occupations. And as we identify those, we're able to custom build, work with y'all to custom build those programs here so that we are a good fit for what's in the community. That has extra ripples. As y'all are focused on worker retraining and the money that comes with that, realize that one of my degrees came from a community college in Texas, that the program had been built through programs just like this to specifically work with Schlumberger, which is a big oil field company. And I went through that program, not under worker retraining, but as on my own dime, and managed to get the skills that I needed to be successful in that organization. So as we build these programs, it ends up rippling out to a far greater population. Really happy to be a part of the partnership with OLI, with Olympic College, and think it's going to be a great relationship going forward. I'll turn it over to questions and bring Mike back up.
And if there's anything I've forgotten, feel free to jump in there.
No, I think, well, another thing that to touch on is in this tech heavy environment and constantly trying to keep up with AI and all things tech. One of the things we've done is automated a referral cross-reference, which I think that's what you were touching on. Yeah. But what's great about that, so when our staff are entering in, this person may need assistance from the local college, that then that sends the referral to Olympic College. And then Ed on the other end is always making sure that those those referrals aren't just staying out there in limbo, and that there's some follow-up. And conversely, it works back where Olympic College is saying, we're going to use this with the certain students, and then get that referral that goes back. And we just implemented that in September, and we took a look and it's working. So that's what's great. So
That's the piece that I missed, was closing the loop. Yeah, we can actually see that those referrals go somewhere.
And so that just adds to more value and student success. When we're talking work and retraining specific.
Any questions? All right, thank you. All right, so between the tours yesterday and our speakers this morning, you've heard from industry, community partners, faculty, staff, and students. And I trust the impact of worker retraining and JSP dollars in our service district has been well communicated. My goal for just the next few moments is to highlight the systems at Olympic College that established this strong foundation for economic partnership within our region. We see Olympic College's Workforce and Economic Development Department as a direct connection between the needs of the local labor market and future workers. And so if you were to ask me, what is it that shapes a strong workforce arm at this particular community college, I'd say it's our ability to listen deeply and respond consistently. So whether it's through our CLNA, Comprehensive Local Needs Assessment, is a huge and heavy lift, and I'm sure all of you at the state board hear the moans of colleges deep and wide across this heavy lift, but it is so helpful to us. We have survey responses from community members, faculty, staff, students, members of our advisory committee, telling us exactly what they want and need to see. Our advisory committees, Alicia already mentioned that. Chambers of Commerce, we have strategy sessions with our 2 workforce development councils, both Olympic and Pac Mountain. We also have direct calls from business owners and managers saying, you know, we are at Watson Furniture in Paulsville. I am down 2 folks. Can you please get me your welding faculty on the phone? I need to hire a temporary assistant with these needs. So it's deep and wide. We're paying attention to the needs and opportunities in our area. I wanted to give you one real-time example of how a program launches here in our area. Kitsap Transit reached out to us with a need. Their mechanics needed low voltage electronics training as a foundation for on-the-job training in high voltage work. The need is critical, and we responded by reaching out to PSE JATC, the Electrical Apprentice Program, which actually is housed right here on our campus. At the end of winter term, we expect to launch a program through a customized contract training, which will solve the need for Kitsap Transit and provide some opportunity for mechanics, local dealerships, and repair shops. If this need continues to grow, this low voltage training solution currently living in our continuing education program may grow into a 4-credit electrical vehicle maintenance program. Looking to the future, we really expect the worker retraining need for mechanics to rise rapidly because of the shift to electronic vehicles. We also expect small businesses are going to need support providing these new job skills to their employees. So what begins as an urgent need for one employer is most certainly going to result in the need for a fully developed program eligible for worker retraining support for employees, as well as JSP support for businesses in the future. So hopefully that will give you just a glimpse into how we work at Olympic College, how a community support program and continuing ed can turn into program development support. And finally, I would like to introduce you to our Vice President of Instruction, Martin Cockcroft, to say a few words.
Will it work if I just sit here? Can you see me okay? I'm like a little more comfortable just sort of round tabling it with you here. Yeah, okay, and the owl, wonderful owl. First of all, thank you for being here at Olympic College. We are delighted to host you here. It was wonderful to have dinner with some of you last night. And I would really like to celebrate our Workforce and Economic Development Division. Just to get a little personal here, it's been about 2 years since our workforce dean, Amy Hatfield, passed away, who was a longtime dean at this college and is really the foundation, it feels like, of our Workforce and Economic Development Department. And since that time, we've just had incredible, talk about a team. We've had, it's been a tough time. And for this team to step into that space, including Dr. Terry Cox, who's not here right now, but went from, after like 1 month of serving as our continuing education director, to step into an interim dean role because of the need. And then for her to have a vision for carrying forward workforce and economic development, to growing the capacity of the department to serve the college and the community. And now I would like to celebrate Wendy Fox and her leadership as now in the interim dean role. Terry moved on to be the Associate Vice President of Instruction here, which I'm super happy about. And Wendy's team. So, you know, Joelle, and Lauren, and Amanda, who just joined us and is supporting us today. It's just, when I think about that division, that Workforce and Economic Development division, what the first word that comes to mind is teamwork. They always work that way, and they're a model to our institution of how to do that kind of work. So I would just like to celebrate them. I don't know that I can add a whole lot to what's been said. I'm just listening and kind of writing down some themes. And what I'm hearing is obviously the importance, and I haven't been a part of all the festivities yesterday and today, but clearly the importance of worker retraining. Wow, are those funds important and change lives? And I think you've heard some student examples. You've heard from kind of how we leverage those funds for first-year apprentices, how we can use those across programs. Thank you for the work you do in advocacy for that, for worker retraining funds, and job skills programs. We are really excited with our partnership with InvenTech. You got to see their facility and the great work they're doing. We want to do more of that work with our local businesses. We want to be a part of it. And so continued funding for JSPs is greatly needed, obviously. And so thank you. I'm also just, hearing about pathways. That word has come up a number of times. How are we supporting our students from, let's say, starting in on the non-credit side and potentially moving into credit-bearing degree or certificate? How do we look at, Dr. Alicia and I talked about how as we're building these new healthcare programs, what we're trying to bake into this is the ability for you to not see this as the end point. So you start maybe, and she didn't even mention this, but you start as a medical assistant. We want to provide pathways for you to continue in medical fields, to grow your skills, to grow your career prospects, your wage, certainly with things like EMT and paramedic or dental assistant, dental hygiene, building those pathways to additional degree attainment and skills development. So, and I just kind of as thinking about, many of you are familiar with the work of Achieving the Dream. And our college has been involved with Achieving the Dream. We send a number of personnel to the Dream Conference every year. One of the things that I've noticed going to that conference is just how over the last, say, 10 or 15 years of looking at guided pathways, really focused on completion initially. How do we get more students to lose fewer credits and complete more, to whole college transformation? What are we doing to grow the capacities of our colleges in terms of our use of data, in terms of our ability to understand equity and inclusion? How do we kind of grow the administrative capacities of the college? And now going to Dream Conference, what you hear over and over again is it's not whole college transformation actually is a great goal, and it's not enough. It's whole community transformation. And that's been a theme today too. We have got to be in partnership, close partnership with all of these folks in our community and for us, for example, we've heard from WorkSource, and thank you for coming and presenting today. With Kitsap, we have our KEDA, our Economic Development Kitsap Economic Development Association, in which we work closely with, working closely with the state board, working with local business to understand their needs, and working with a variety of state and local representatives. That's the only way we're getting the allied health off the ground. You know that workforce programs can be expensive. If you look at the critical need in dental hygiene, and as we've waded into the work of trying to start a dental hygiene program, it's no wonder we are at such a shortage. It is scarily expensive to stand up. And yeah, maybe from the bottom line perspective, you might look at that and say, it's really not worth doing for us. It's harder to do than not do. So we'll take a pass. But our community needs us to be involved in that space. And that's not just here, that's everywhere. With dental hygiene, just one example. So the more we can do to support workforce funding broadly, I see Arlen sitting across from me, the better. And when you go to conferences like the ACT conference for college trustees, what you hear over and over again is that workforce is, in these polarized times, workforce is a bipartisan seller. People want to invest in workforce. So really pushing that, it's that building that ecosystem for workforce and economic development that I think we want to be all about. And then I'll just mention too, thinking a little bit about the challenges to come. We're at the cusp of AI. And I don't know how much time that's taken at this meeting, but people who know a lot more than I do have called this a revolution, not unlike the invention of the printing press. It could be radically transformative in really great ways and in really difficult ways. And part of that is that I think we are likely to see more people who are end up having to reskill or upskill because their jobs are going to go away, or they're going to change so significantly that they're going to need the support from us so that they continue to work and thrive. And so I'll just put that out there. We don't know what all of those kind of unknowns and those threats are, but we want to be there and be adaptive to address them. And this is a group that I think can help solve that. So thank you for being kind of a part of that. I guess, I'll mention just one quick example. So I think you've heard a little bit about the commercial driver's license partnership that we're working on at our Shelton campus. We have a very small campus out there at Shelton. To be totally frank with you, because it's an hour away, unless you work at the Shelton campus, a lot of people go day to day here at the Riverview campus and they never even think of Shelton. They don't even know it's there. We have many employees who've never visited the campus because unless you have a reason to go there, you probably wouldn't. But this is a community, this is part of our service area. We really take seriously our kind of mission to serve Shelton and larger Mason County. And Terry Cox and I had a conversation, it was maybe a year and a half ago, where we sat down with some businesses there, including Green Diamond, and they said, what would really help us? CDL. We have great jobs, can't hire anybody into them because we can't train CDL ourselves. And we need to hire people who have that license already. If we can hire them, then we can put them to work driving trucks for up to $30 an hour starting wage with nearly unlimited overtime, such that people who get into these jobs can be making high 5 figures, low 6 figures, almost right off the bat. And we can't get people to apply for them. So we listened to that and we didn't go to them for that conversation. That was the conversation they brought to us. What can you do with this? And so now, finally, sometime later, 18 months later, we have this program in partnership with Washington Trucking School, in partnership with the Port of Shelton, and thanks to the hard work of the Workforce and Economic Development team. And I think that's like a testament to what we want. It's just one kind of microcosm of what we're trying to grow here at Olympic College, and I'm sure statewide throughout our system. So again, thank you for being here. And I don't know if you have any questions for me, but.
Just want to say thank you. I mean, we had a great visit yesterday to the company was amazing, and the CEO was so engaged. We all talked about that a little bit, and just the way you've been able to braid together different sources of funding. I think we discount how hard it is for people to navigate bureaucracies and agencies and programs. It is immensely difficult, right, for folks to think about, commerce, state board, ESD, and kind of, the myriad of needs that someone has to be able to become economically self-sufficient, right? And you're doing that here, and I really applaud you. I think you're entrepreneurial with your thinking and your approach. And our job at the state board is to support you as much as we can and to clear away any barriers, barnacles, whatever you want to call them, and to continue to provide that state funding and increase them when possible, so that as we've heard, you're changing lives here. So thank you very much. Consider us all a thought partner with you, and it's just really gratifying. Thank you. This is what you're gonna do. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Before you take your break for lunch, yesterday, as we were walking out, Bill made just a passing comment to me that got me thinking about something. He said, it would be really interesting if we had that snapshot of labor market data stacked right up against Olympic College snapshots of our work. And so for the programs that we visited yesterday, the PSNS program, industrial trades technician, and film, and everything that you saw in the trades building, we have just a little snapshot on each page of what it looks like. What is the job market, kind of addressing your questions from the back row there? What does the job market look like here? And what does our student investment look like, particularly in worker retraining? So I'll just leave that with you as something to think about. And thank you so much for coming. We appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
So do you ever sleep?
To be honest, the work of Dr. Terry Cox made this job possible.
Yeah.
It was a little too much prior to that. She did a great job of making it do it.
Very highly regarded.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Tony. Really appreciate your time.
Paul?
Yeah. Question.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I'll let her pass that.
And a producer. Yeah, they made those. Yeah.
Wendy, we have a question for
Yes,
you.
yes.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you everybody for all that great information that you shared with us. So I was, struck, Mark said it, you said it earlier, your jobs here locally are to listen to your community, right? Here on the CAC, I think we have a similar charge, right, to listen to the workforce programs, so that's why we do these visits, right? So we know about funding. I know everyone's working hard about how do we get more funding for these programs, but from a policy perspective, are there any obstacles, challenges you feel from the policy perspective as it relates to these programs that you feel that we in Olympia need to hear about? Things that maybe different, more flexible uses of the funds, populations to serve, that maybe the funds don't quite allow you to tackle, at least in this area. And if you don't have any thoughts now, I mean, obviously we're here to solicit those at any time, right?
Yes, certainly. So in terms of policy change, one of the most recent ones that was very impactful for us, and I know that Dr. Ned would speak to this as well, is the widening of nursing funds. That made a giant difference for us, for sure. Some of the programs, the number of credits in order to get financial aid, which I know is not the purview of this body, but just as thinking about it, that can be an issue. Right now, our certified nursing assistants don't qualify for financial aid because their program it's 13 credits.
No credit.
And so that's a giant issue for us. So what that means is we can only serve as many CNAs as worker retraining can fund. So for those that need it, either they pay out of pocket or worker retraining funds them. And so that is a change that we desperately need. Our short-term certificates absolutely need to qualify for financial aid. And so I think if I could send you away with anything, it would be to please lean into that as hard as you can so that we can expand the funding. We're happy to help students start, but we have to say no quite a lot because it's a big burden on worker retraining.
That's a great point. At the federal level, a workforce panel too is a big deal, and there's a lot of support behind it, but we haven't been able to get that all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
May I embolden you to comment on the fact that the job skills program, our dollar for dollar matching grant for customized training, is not available to local governments or quasi-governmental entities. That's set in statute. So there's some layers between this group and changing, but could you describe how that impacted you recently?
Thank you for bringing that up, Carolyn. So when Kids Up Transit reached out to us saying, we have this deep need for training, we thought, maybe JSP can help. And so we reached out and they said, actually, no, we can't because Kids Up Transit receives state dollars, federal dollars, and we can't fund in that way. So that was difficult for us because then we have this big, deeply embedded community need and we have no way of supporting them. And so we had to kind of be quick on our feet, reach out to the apprenticeship program, see how we could stand something up. Luckily, they were able to purchase some of the tools that we need, but it really made it difficult that those funds weren't available to easily stand up and support this, just kind of delaying the process. You mentioned, and I appreciate that, it's really our goal to be entrepreneurial in our thinking. And the inability to have those funds as ready support made us delay. So they came to us probably 9 months ago, maybe even 12 months ago. So finding a way to support that has been complicated. If we could crack open the code to that funding to allow for municipalities to receive that funding would be a huge help to us. Thank you.
I'd just like to add, working with Olympic College. So part of my job is overseeing Perkins funding, as well as CT dual credit and program approval. So colleges submit for Perkins funds and they need to identify how they're going to leverage those dollars in support of specific programs where there's a need and that there is opportunity for growth and where students need supports. And Olympic College does a great job of identifying through that process. And I think what we saw today through allied health nursing was just how thoughtful, how much time and effort it takes to be that thoughtful about planning a comprehensive alignment of all of these intricate programs with many different entry points. It gives students steps of advancement in these really important industries that we know we need to prepare students for in a way that you can fund them and keep them moving forward. And that's one reason we've reached out to Olympic for this event, is that we know the quality of work that's being done. So, and the alignment across all of these different programs, Perkins doesn't come into our conversations much, but it is one of the many not only resources, but also then the compliance that comes with all of the types of funding that we receive. So the tightrope that you all walk here to bring these innovations forward is really impressive. So it's really a powerful representation of what our system can do with the right people.
Okay, great. How are we doing on time? We are a few minutes early, so we're all having lunch here, right? That is space. Okay, and we talked about maybe working through lunch, so why don't we take a little bit of a break? How about that? And then we'll reconvene at about 12 o'clock. Because if we do that, we'll be able to finish earlier. I don't think there'll be any arguments there about finishing early. I'm still mindful of the traffic conversation after 2 o'clock. That's at least in my mind, so we'll reconvene at 12 and then I get going for lunch and then start with some updates tomorrow with Stephen, so.
Please sign in, and if you aren't on the list, write your name and stay for lunch.
Well, I mean.
Turn it over to our workforce team. Unfortunately, our workforce education director, Marie Bruin, is a little under the weather, so is unable to join us today. And so let me turn it over to Bill Belden, who's going to guide us through that.
Yeah, so we're going to skip over the 12:30 report. And we are going to start with the job skills program update with Carolyn and Jamie.
Yeah, great. Let's see a showing. If you're on the job skills subcommittee doing those grant reviews, can we just see a show of your hand, your thumbs up? Thank you so much for your service. You've reviewed dozens and dozens of grant applications over round 1 and round 2, and we're ever so grateful for your guidance on those important investments. Danny, I am gonna turn it over to you for a brief update on where we are with funding for this current year. And then to talk about the discussion topic of in-state worker. Danny, we have 2 slides that Kim could tee up for those. If you feel like you need them.
Yes, I think it's good for us to get them on the screen.
And if I could, I'll just foreshadow for today, for the job skills program, we have 3 discussion topics where we want just to touch base with you. We don't have any policy actions, but we want to touch base on these, get some input in real time from you. They may lead to some policy decisions at a future meeting. So this is the first one.
I'm gonna walk up there because I can hardly read that from back here, so. But to start with, just a quick update on the award of job skills project grants for the current year. It may seem natural to you, but it's odd for us to be at a place where we've been so divided by year, because for so long we've had a biannual process where we get the funding for job skills and award those projects starting from round 1 all the way through 7 rounds of funding that are continuously running through the end of the biennium. And we've really gotten to a place now where it's pretty firmly set, where the projects are divided by the year. They have to start and finish in the same year. That has made some things easier for us. Our reporting to the legislature has become easier because we've got a contained set of projects that have started and completed. You can report data on that, but it also makes it a little bit more complicated for running those projects, because now all of a sudden you can't apply kind of 3 or 4 months, 6 months into the first year of the biennium and still run a project that could be 12 months long. And so everything's kind of contained right in that segment. We, in FY25, where we're currently at now, had to make some tough decisions in round one. Round one was our first opportunity for 12-month projects in FY25, running from July 1st of 2024 through June 30th of 2025. We made some choices to not fund all of the applications that were submitted. Now, why is that important? One of the things that we've realized in the job skills project process is that many of the projects are designed around the needs of the business to fit into a specific training period. And so to make those choices means it's very likely that a project, even if it's a great project, it may not be able to come back and get funded again for even another period within the same year. And so a lot of times those projects are like, no, this is the opportunity to run the training from this period to this period. If we can't do it, then we're looking at maybe another year out before we can run those projects. But we left some applications on the table. There was not a clear feeling that all those projects would have been competitively awarded if they were in a larger batch of projects and they came back. A couple of them did. So we decided to run a round 2 of FY25. Round 2 was announced. Two of the projects that didn't get awarded in round 1 out of about 5 did come back in for another opportunity to see if they could fit a project in. Then round 2 came around. We had a little bit of juggling of some projects. This happens as well, where we'll have a project that gets awarded and then all of a sudden some massive changes happen within the business and they can't run the training anymore and potentially get 100% of that funding back. This could be anywhere from a $32,000 project that we just had canceled out of round 2 that we just awarded. Nobody else knows about that, and it's just in the process of this coming back in. So one of the projects that we awarded was $32,000, and it's going to come back in and become available. But we had a $150,000 project that was discontinued as well. And so sometimes they're a little bit more significant. Right now, officially in our account, we've only got like $1,500 available. So we've awarded everything, even juggling some of those projects around down to where we've only got $1,500 available. We will have that $32,000 come back in. I've also got over $175,000 of requests to add some things into projects. And so we're not afraid of the funding being unused. We are running what we call a funding survey. That's where we actually send a survey questionnaire out to the managers of these projects to find out how they feel things are going, if there may be some adjustments in place. I know one college in particular that has already let me know that their demand on the team that manages the projects at the college has been fulfilled beyond capacity. And so how does this make a big difference? We allow up to 25% of the grant to go for administrative and project development expenses within these projects. Well, they don't have capacity to go beyond that. So they're going to return some of that administrative project development money. And it'll be on several projects that they got awarded on top of other projects that they had in there. So that means some more money back in. So we'll have some things coming up this week. The funding survey will go out. We'll know about money that can come back in. We'll know about other requests potentially. We want to make this competitive as well. for the people who have an interest to increase or add courses to their projects. So we may see some changes. This won't go back out to another review. So these will be projects that have already been recommended by our review committee and approved all the way through Paul for award. So that's where we'll be at on those. And so that's your update on FY25. We'll still end the year with a total number of projects that exceed the number of projects we had in FY24. So we've increased, we'll spend all the money. Hopefully, there's always little things that happen throughout the year. We get close at the end and we try to mix things around as much as we can. We'll do 2 more funding surveys to make sure things get taken care of before we end up at June 30th and people have to turn in their reports. And we're well ahead on our report. Our annual report to the legislature is in kind of final draft mode and under review, and that will report everything from FY24, kind of a preliminary insight into FY25 as well. So any questions on that?
I could jump in, but let's wait for questions.
Danny, I have a question. Do we ever, I was talking to Wendy yesterday, I think this was the first job skills award in about 10 years. Yes, I did that right.
That's right.
Yeah, here. And do we ever survey colleges that maybe haven't participated in the job skills program in a number of years to find out kind of what are the barriers? How can we help? You know, I would venture that it's probably just capability bandwidth on campuses, but maybe there's something else.
I like to interact with the colleges and ask. We do that normally through our continuing education committee council. The continuing education councils, that usually that portion of the college managers that work on the job skills program. So we interact with them on an ongoing basis. I personally hate surveys, and so I don't know, Carolyn. When I retire, she loves surveys, but when I retire, maybe we'll end up doing more surveys after that. But it's like I'm usually the objector. It's like, no, can we do this another way? It's like, do we really get good information from surveys? I think that you can. So yes, we hear from the colleges about why, and there's various reasons. I think the better answer is in trying to find out if there is a way that we can use the job skills program beyond what they currently are doing to meet the needs of their business community. And so every college has got as their primary objective to meet the needs of the community where the college is at. And so how are they meeting the needs of the businesses? And they may feel like those business needs are being met through other needs, and maybe not. Maybe they haven't even gotten to the place where they think that the work that's involved in competing for a job skills project could be worthy of their time to meet the needs of the business. I love what Wendy said about how you can potentially grow things from something that starts out as a job skills program to potentially a permanent program. We've seen great examples of that. Is it Wenatchee Valley?
It never is Wenatchee when you're thinking it is.
So this time it's
Walla Walla.
Walla Walla. All right, so I always get those two mixed up, but we had a great project where it was a electronic maintenance engineer program that started out as the job skills program that became a permanent degree program at the college, and it was specifically for Tyson Foods and their hamburger division over in Walla Walla. And so they developed a whole program that came out of the job skills program, became a permanent set of courses. So we see that happen.
Well, I could jump in on that because that was one of the 3 discussion topics we wanted to check in with you all about, which is we had about a year and a half ago, we had collectively set an aspirational goal to increase the number of colleges and private career schools participating in this program. And we started at a benchmark of 17 community and technical colleges, 1 private career school. This biennium, we're currently at 10 or 11, if I'm thinking.
I didn't count it.
Our performance has gone down. And there are lots of reasons why a college would or would not choose to participate. It depends, lots of variables we can't control and a few we can. So a big step forward in building out more college capacity was the Continuing Education Council of our system hosted a one-day training in August for all of their members to focus on best practices in customized contract training. So just fee for service contract training to business clients. So there was half the day dedicated to that where they were coaching and mentoring one another. And then we shifted into how do you use the job skills program and the customized training program to help offset the costs to your customers who are doing that customizing contract training. As a result, a number of colleges that have tons of experience, you know, if you're on the JSP review committee, you know, we have some frequent flyers, colleges that really have their program down, and they have volunteered to mentor newcomers. So we're really hopeful that that helps peer-to-peer build some capacity. But we need to do more. So I like this idea of surveying. Danny hates that. He says he doesn't like writing.
Informal conversations, or even formal conversations.
We will be with our continuing education colleagues Thursday and Friday this week again for a council meeting. Other thoughts on, if you've seen the applications, is there something we can do inside the application or the rubric, the evaluation rubric to?
My point's not related to the application, but more of a future thing. With the investment that we've had from DOE, Department of Energy, and the Hydrogen Hub, the Charge Consortium, which is also part of JC Dream at WSU, so many different acronyms. And they're highly engaged right now in that green hydrogen workforce development side.
Yes.
And so that's a big need, but it's also potential partnership for SBCTC, and WSU and Charge and the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Association and Commerce to all work towards this new workforce season.
I appreciate that. Our Center of Excellence for Clean Energy hosted at Centralia is deeply engaged with the Hydrogen Hub work as well.
Yep.
So when I meet with her director, with Monica, I'll put out some feelers for that.
I think that probably also align with the Clean Energy Technology Workforce Advisory Committee.
SETWEC.
Yeah, it's a lot of, it's a big acronym. It's a lot of.
Okay. So we have a colleague who's well dialed into Eileen's work.
Yes.
There, great. So we won't linger on the college capacity, but we want you to know we're working that with our continuing ed folks. I also want to contribute to Danny's comments about this funding this year, round 1 and round 2. All of the grant monies pushed out to the community colleges, private career schools. The projects are funded. And now what? We've canceled round 3. We do not have any further funds to support short-term custom training this year. So we do have, I have numbers of how many businesses we've turned away. I think 22 applications have been turned away. Some may be able to get some resources. Danny talked to a couple of those, but that's 1,600 working people who aren't getting custom skill training because of a lack of funding. So the state board, you didn't see this in the operating budget request. This is a more minor thing, but the state board has put in a maintenance level request to the legislature for bumping that funding up a bit, a couple of $1 million, and very meaningful funding. Even though I call it a bit because in the constellation of our operating budget, it's small, but just a little bit of movement there we think could really help meet community needs in this space.
The request is 4.8 million for the biennium, so 2.4 per year increase to current level funding.
And so it's 15 million that's currently going to Washington State.
15.45 million
15.45.
per
So,
biennium. Per biennium.
so my question is reflecting back in the information that I have in my head is old. But it was like, I remember some states that were showing that like the demand, like we're seeing the demand is high, the use is very, very high. But a lot of other states were like 25, 30 million in that. And so I just want to make that plug for that it is, you're turning away businesses like if I remember right, the original ask before COVID was like 25 million and then it ended up down to 15. And I think we originally started at 5 million back in 2018 before.
Yeah, we were consistently 5.4 million.
5.4,
Yeah.
thank you. So I want to put that out there in the conversation space that there's a need. There is a need, there is a desire, and like you're talking about, Danny, like it builds small businesses up, it builds potential things, and it's a way that I feel like it really responds to the future workforce. But then like the partnerships that are out there, because there's other like, just example, there's some labor unions, they're trying to figure out how to partner because they want to do a new program. They want to start something different. I've had a couple discussions with our affiliated unions and they're curious, but timing, right? It's timing of knowing when the funds and then having partnerships. So we're constantly saying like, get the partnerships pulling together now. So then when it drops, you're ready to go. And that's a whole nother thing, but it's like the community's calling.
Appreciate that important context. Thanks.
So hasn't been that long ago when Jan was still executive director here that I remember a conversation with her almost arguing about whether or not JSP was competitive. She said, it's not competitive. You award all the contracts. Everybody who wants money in JSP gets it. It's not really competitive. I said, no, it is. I know we do a good job at awarding all those projects out there. And even when we had 5.4 million, I think there is some economics around the availability of funding and the applications. We really don't know ramifications on what happens when you only get 12 months of funding and you turn away 13 projects. And then the next year, do you apply again? It's like, hey, this is so competitive. Why take my time to do it? There is I think, something that happens there. Round one of the second year of the biennium, I expected probably twice as many applications to come in that round one. We didn't fund all of them, but at the same time, I think there is some potential for people to say, you know what, this is too competitive. There is some work that's involved in it. The benefit to the business is really the ultimate thing that's out there, because the college is the one that does all the administrative work. You know, they have to turn in the invoices and get reimbursed, spend the money, get the money back, and reports and everything else in partnership with the business. But the colleges do have some work that's involved in running a project. Some of them get really good at it, and then they run 12 projects.
So let's tee up the policy topic where we want some guidance, some thoughts from you. We're not going to ask you to take an action on making a policy today, but it's about out-of-state workers. What defines a Washington state worker who gets to benefit from the job skills program versus an out-of-state worker? And the pandemic really changed how people show up to work each day. So Danny can unpack that.
Yeah, so we've got to make decisions based on guidelines and what's in the statute out there all the time. And so we had specifically a project that was asking, can my out-of-state workers participate in the JSP project? It's not really clarified in the rule. We know this, only JSP students may be enrolled in sections. So the courses that are run are all put into the enrollment system at the college, and only people who are part of the JSP project can participate in that. So you can't combine, Wendy, you can't have a JSP course running in VinTech and also throw in a handful of other students from the college into that. That's not allowed. So only the JSP students can participate. But there is no specific guidance on whether the employees who live in the state or out of the state can participate in the training courses. And so we've kind of tried to model our response to that based on what happens within other employment kind of situations throughout the state. And so where we're at right now, specific scenarios that have come about, and this is come about even more so now because there are a lot more remote workers in the state than there used to be. But remote employees serving a full-time role for a Washington State business located here. So they got a Washington State JSP project going on. But they have their employees that are living outside of the state. And the answer to that was those people are not eligible to be JSP students within the courses. Mostly because the statute really was a design for funding to not only benefit businesses and relationships between businesses and colleges, but state workers. So that one is one scenario. Another scenario is employees serving full-time role for a Washington business living out of the state and then commuting to work on site, full or part-time. We said eligible because they're actually working in the state. And then the next one, remote employees that live outside of the state and do physical work at another site. So it's possible. So here's a Washington State business. Here's employees that are actually stationed in Boston, Massachusetts, working for a division of that same company that operates out of Boston, Massachusetts. Not eligible. Next slide, Kim, you can hear me. I'm guessing you're out there. And then the third one is a paid third-party providers. Can they participate? And these are like 1099 employees. They're not full-time, even considered temporary part-time workers, independent contractors, freelancers, that kind of thing. What if the third party were located out of state, like remote employees, and answer not eligible? And I think, Carolyn, we were expanding that to all
1099.
All, yeah.
All 10 contractors. So these are decisions we've made this year on the fly as the issues have come up, so that we're not holding companies back that have, everything else is compliant. We just had to answer a question about a sliver of their employees. But we would really like to hear your reactions to this and other scenarios. What are we not thinking of? What do we need to do to make sure that this program has high fidelity to Washington business and employees?
I, like, in the scenarios, I would have concerns if it's people outside of the state, right? People coming to the state, they're still part of the community, they're still in that space. But if you open it outside of the state, does that mean outside of just Washington State, outside of the United States? I mean, remote can be anything. So it would be very unfortunate, and I don't think that would be. Because let me ask this question in the middle of my thought. Because the JSP dollars, they're coming from tax dollars or?
Yeah, these are state general fund and education legacy trust account. These are paid by Washington taxpayers.
So, and that's what I'm saying. So not just businesses, but businesses, working families, right? In the entire community, all Washingtonians. I wouldn't personally consider that a good return of investment back into my community. And like, there used to be, business model used to be all about return investment back to the community directly. Nowadays, it seems like that model is more of like, how do we return it back to investors? And that would be great if we weren't trying to bring it back to Washington, like so it was different, but I think that's important to keep at the front of things.
Commerce does promote JSP and our customized training program, CTP, as good reasons to come and locate a business in Washington State.
Very frequently. This is pretty much every single incentive breakdown and competitive advantage proposal I put together.
I have a question that might inform a comment for you, but delivery of the training of the JSP, if we're talking about individuals who say are in a remote working situation and out of state, are we assuming that the training is also hybrid of some? Or is there an expectation that that individual who's out of state would need to show up physically at a CTC
It
to?
could be either way, Gary, so,
Any which
yeah.
way.
You see all those even for the in-state? Employers, okay. And I was thinking, if you do have someone come from out of state and there's some, is it more expensive for an out-of-state GSP participant from a tuition standpoint? I mean, it doesn't factor into it's just you're purchasing the training. Etc. Okay.
The expense within the project is a training expense. So one thing that doesn't change, doesn't matter if it's an out-of-state worker or an in-state worker, the cost to do the training is gonna be the same. And so that's also potentially another positive investment from the JSP. I mean, we're still investing in Washington State trainers, whether it's college trainers that are doing the training or they've subcontracted to another trainer to do the work. Those are generally people within the state, but we've had out-of-state specific training that needs to be conducted for a business that, you know, has come to Washington to do it. One given is that all the training is usually on location at the place of the business.
Danny, have we had any requests from businesses to provide training to out-of-state workers?
So this, Carolyn, this request really came up as a result of a possible application that was being worked on. And so we haven't funded any projects that have, this has come up as a question like, hey, now that we have our funding, do we have to forbid these people from participating? Not that I remember.
Okay. Any other comments on that topic? If something comes to mind? Gary?
Well, I'm just gonna say with respect to the independent contractors, if I'm not eligible, that is actually pretty consistent with some of our at employment security. With our programs, because we do look for a formal employer-employee relationship as defined by the Fair Labor Standards Act, and so independent contractors do not count as employees. So for us, that makes it. We get the intent sometimes, right? We work so closely with these folks.
Yeah.
They might as well be our employees, but they're not.
I just wonder, so an employer hires somebody that lives out of state, or perhaps somebody that works for them moves out of state due to family care or whatever the case may be. This is a valuable way of contributing to the productivity of the foundation of the organization. And that by investing in that employee, it strengthens the organization, and they grow, they add taxes, they add employees to their. I guess I don't see excluding them in my mind. It seems like you're still investing in the Washington business that's growing and providing. So I don't know, I just look at it from a different perspective that there could be value to it.
It's super tricky for that exact reason. But to tie back to statute. Statute is very clear that this program is to benefit both the employer and the workforce. So that's where we said that we think that's our line, and a workforce that is able to commute into Washington within a reasonable commuting distance. Felt like another good litmus test. To say, well, there are exceptions because we have relationships with other communities in Oregon and Idaho. And then third, consistency with other state programs, which is why I was reaching out through you to your unemployment insurance colleagues. Those were kind of our three. But it doesn't make the puzzle go away.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Well, on the UI thing, I mean, that was the other thing that came to mind was that you have to work in Washington at least 1 hour, and correct me, Gary, if I'm way off, but at least 1 hour to potentially be eligible for a UI claim in Washington. So if that person moves to California, they're working in California, the company's not gonna pay the Washington taxes. I mean, heck, if they're in Idaho, we use Idaho, for example, they're not gonna pay Washington UI tax. They're gonna pay Idaho, because that's a cheaper rate for them. So it's kind of that thing like, that investment doesn't fully impact, the return investment doesn't fully come back to the community as a whole. I say whole community because it's both business and workers, right? Like, it's everybody. And I hear your point that that person's still contributing, but, right, like, as a whole.
I'm just gonna.
Maybe the majority, the majority of the workforce is local, adding one more employee who's working remotely might not actually increase the cost of the training project, but it adds complexity, for the company and having to exclude, that person. So, perhaps the ratio is I don't know if we want to precise numbers, but, onesie twosies seem to be a
Some
different issue
space
that.
for flexibility and, project
Yeah, as
specific.
opposed to companies who have remote workforce all over, and the majority will come from elsewhere, even though they're located, the company is registered in Washington. I think those are different scenarios there.
And I was just going to springboard off of both those comments, Bill, and because I think about the state's remote work policy, right? We're having to contend with that as state government as well. And there are the exceptions, right? For individuals who have, had to relocate and are remotely working because of family situation, caregiving, what have you. I mean, I would hope that we would have those exceptions because they are at the end of the day, Washington workers who are usually temporarily in another place, right, state, what have you, but we'll be back in Washington at some point. In the future.
So I hear just, if we formalize a policy in the guidelines, we wanna have a policy that, allows, for a little bit of flexibility and reasonable approaches to making it work for all. Appreciate your feedback. The last topic.
Karen, I
Yeah.
just have one more
Yes.
question. How do these scenarios reflect with the customized training plan?
Customized training program has substantially fewer constraints if the business is a B&O tax payer. Located in Washington, paying Washington B&O tax. I think that's that.
Right, so they could leverage that program just the same.
For their out of
These scenarios would all be a
workers.
yes or be eligible.
A little bit.
Yeah, because we don't track it, so it's much more important with JSP because most of the businesses are using employee wages and benefits as the match requirement for the project. And that's not there for customized training. The customized training program is basically a loan and they're repaying the entire amount of that training cost back.
I think we'd have to look at Department of Revenue on whether or not there's a constraint on claiming the tax credit. Around employing 100% of trainees being in Washington. I don't think that's written into Department of Revenue's statute for the tax credit. We'll double check. Want to keep this moving? After lunch, fall asleep. Don't do that. Don't do that. The last piece to check in with you about and invite input is a year and a half ago, we came to you and said it is our internal goal in the program to increase the diverse representation of the business customers that are served. Again, there's a lot of externalities that we can't directly control. We don't build those individual relationships with businesses, the colleges do. But we came to you and said, at least we're going to start collecting some baseline information about the representation of business customers. And we got your support to use ONWBE, Office of minority and women.
This enterprises.
Good, thank you, everybody. Makes the village. Department of Veterans Affairs, so veteran owned. Is that it?
Yep.
So we started asking all of our applicants, are your employers certified as either OMWBE or veteran owned? What we are learning is that a lot of JSP business customers are not interested in government contracting. And so they have not gone through those certification protocols. So we have incomplete information. We've added, Danny described, we've added kind of space for other.
Yeah, so we've made it clear, we do webinars prior to applications coming in and obviously continuing to interact with colleges as they work on these. But one of the things we wanted to make clear is that if there is other evidence to show that these are minority operated businesses, and I use the term minority because that's the official MWBE term, but if there's that piece that applies in some other way, and there are other organizations and associations that businesses can be a part of that recognize that, then provide that evidence as well. So we've accepted that already. We annually update our guidelines, and so there will be another line added to the guidelines this time around that encourages that other evidence be submitted, so it isn't strictly written in as MWBE or the Veterans Affairs. And it's basically right now it says collect that documentation included in your application.
So our question for you is there anything that, are we missing something? Are there other ways to get at making sure that we're capturing the documentation, but also just looking at when do you cross the table and like, how can we help this program get more visible? I guess that's a huge marketing question. But how can we better understand who is being served?
I'm wondering, we have in the governor's office, the Office of Equity, which was created years ago, and I'm wondering if maybe you had a chance to reach out to them. That's a great idea. I know they're interested, business engagement is kind of certainly on their radar.
Right. And I think my other thinking is as we develop we have a very limited outreach campaign from state court staff, but as we look to the next year, might we want to just concentrate on the Washington State Hispanic Chamber, just show up in some different spaces or find champions who are already in those spaces, better yet, and explore how to get there.
Yeah, the commissions.
Yeah.
Right. Asian, Native American, Hispanic,
Governor's office.
Yep. And then, I don't know, you start getting a lot of, we won't go to local, a lot of buy-in for organizations, but. There's a central place where you would find a directory of.
Might be the Office of Equity.
Or the commission might have some list of organizations that are at least active in their circles.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, if any other thoughts come to you on that, please reach out to us. 2 more very brief updates related to the job skills program. Job Skills has a sister program, the customized training program. We just mentioned that's a revolving loan fund, covers the upfront cost of training. And then as the business repays it, they can claim a tax credit worth half of their repayments to the loan fund. That program has been under legislative audit, which is normal and healthy. Don't worry, it's not a bad thing. The legislative auditor has completed their review of the tax credit portion of the program. Our team was very involved in informing that. The Citizens Tax Commission is meeting right now. They're wrapping up their meeting today, right now, to finalize their comments. But Jay Lark's recommendations to the legislature are 1, to extend the sunset date for the tax credit. In other words, keep that tax credit going. It is set to expire. And their recommendation is to the legislature, don't let it expire yet. The program's working well. Their second recommendation is to state board in particular to figure out how to get more businesses from more industries engaged in this program from more regions of the state. So this is a program that's highly concentrated in manufacturing in the central Puget Sound area. So that is, we just want you to be aware, we're gonna kind of dovetail the kinds of outreach we were just talking about, JSP. We're gonna be doing the same around the customized training.
Carolyn, remind me, is the CTP still at $356,000?
About 300, we have a revolving loan fund, about $330,000.
I'm wondering where the other 26 went.
Yeah.
Yeah, some long time
In my
collections.
memory.
Yeah, so this
Yeah.
started as a $2 or $3 million program, has been cut over the years. The Great Recession kind of brought that way down. But just wanted you to know that going into the session, we will be, we're heartened to know that the legislative auditor is favorable to the tax credit. Those are our updates.
Thank you. Over to
You ready for worker retraining? So there are two things that I want to talk to you about. One, just want to give you an overview of what's happening in worker retraining in terms of money and enrollments. And second is to document a policy that at some point in the past has already been decided, but we do not have documentation. So the worker retraining, just as a reminder, is about a $40 million program that all of our CDCs participate in. And also we have about 1.6 million that is going to private career schools. And we are mandated by the legislature to serve about 7,170 FTEs, through this program. The enrollments in the worker training program very closely mirror our unemployment rates in the state. Unemployment rate goes up, so do the enrollments. So at the peak of the recession, we were serving 13,000 FTEs. Right now, as the unemployment is low, we are serving about 5,000. But in headcounts, that is still about 8,000, 9,000 heads. So we are serving very significant portion of our CDC workforce population with these funds. As Wendy was mentioning yesterday, in conversation about apprenticeship, she was saying that first year apprentices, this funding is meant to provide upfront tuition and other expense relief to the student as the college is working with the student to apply for other sources of financial aid. So it is not meant to sustain an employee through the whole degree. It is startup funding. It has no financial eligibility requirements, just that the person is either a dislocated worker or a vulnerable worker. So if they do not get upskilled, they will lose their employment. So we have increased our enrollments in worker training program compared to the previous year by about 13%. And that translates to about 1,200 students. So unemployment rate ticked up just a tiny bit. It's still under 5%. It was under 4% the previous year. We see a tiny uptick in unemployment. We see an uptick in enrollment. So it is continuing that, really neat, they flow together. The worker training students only are enrolling in workforce programs. They are eligible as per decision of this group last year to participate in pre-nursing, pre-allied health programs as well, and baccalaureate applied science students are also eligible. So we are utilizing the funds. The targets are not met, in the low unemployment time, but the headcounts definitely are there, and the trend is up. And this program is helping colleges keep their workforce programs to industry standard, pay faculty, and serve students directly. So it has several goals for this funding. As we are transitioning to the second part of what I wanted to talk about, I will start with an apology, as I did when we were talking about pre-nursing, pre-allied health decision. The Workforce Education Council met Thursday, Friday, so I wasn't able to share this decision paper with you in advance, as you know, the way that the process works is that colleges bring their requests or, you know, decisions to the state board. We validate them with the Workforce Education Council. That happened on Friday. And we've announced that we will bring this up for discussion at this committee. We have an issue of inconsistency in our policies pertaining to displaced homemaker eligibility. That is the term that is used in federal legislation. So we are continuing to use it to align with WIOA and other federal funds. So displaced homemakers are those who provided unpaid services in the home and have lost the support either through divorce, death, or another displacement event. For the majority of our eligibility categories, whether it's veterans separating from service or dislocated workers losing employment, the time frame in which they can come to the colleges and receive worker training funds is 48 months. Somehow, this eligibility timeline, it became not well documented, you know, for dislocated homemakers. Appears as 48 months in 2016 guidelines to the colleges for worker training program. Then guidelines fall silent on the issue. And then, you know, there's a document that provides an example of documentation that states 24 months for eligibility. That, of course, causes colleges anxiety that they don't want to be out of compliance. And so I'm just asking this group, you know, to help us document that the eligibility for displaced homemaker will be 48 months as for other dislocated worker categories. And, you know, there are many pros to documenting this and having 48 months, you know, compliance is just one of them, but this is a relatively small population that right now is not receiving the same access to our services. The cons is that, you know, it does create that additional, you know, few eligible students who may be competing for the same resources. Again, I think I have the number here. It is 349 FTEs out of thousands that we serve, and it is roughly 6% of the students that we serve. So the impact onto the overall program is not going to be that significant. Any questions? Thoughts?
Anna, do you know maybe why that change occurred? It's kind of interesting, right? Like, was it just a omission or?
We do not, they could not find any documentation. Every eligibility decision goes through this group. So we don't know if it wasn't documented, if it didn't go through this group, but we wanted to correct that, you know, so that, you know, colleges can feel confident in qualifying students.
Because then you have expanded eligibility, right? It's about, yeah.
I think it's nice for the option one that staff recommends to, again, further align this program with the federal evaluate Title I dislocated worker program, about displaced homework. I mean, gives all the individuals who do, small number as they may be, the opportunity to, again, co-enroll, get co-enrolled, and be able to leverage multiple sources of funding to get into their training goals.
So I'm not well versed in the Robert's rules. So if someone can help me with the process.
Do you want to go?
I would love a motion, if the group thinks that they need more time to think, we can, tackle this at our next meeting, but, staff recommend aligning. And I hope there's enough evidence, to do that, although I acknowledge the short time to think.
What we call for a motion to.
I'm a visual person.
To adopt on this.
Here, take this one.
What,
So do we call for a motion to approve for the worker retraining program? A dislocated eligibility period, worker eligibility period of 48 months.
correct.
Yes.
Okay, we have a second.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all those opposed- thank you. All those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Thank you all, again, I do my darndest to give you time, and two times in a row now, I've asked you to make a decision on the spot, and I'm really grateful for the discussion and, for moving these along.
For the minutes, we had Emmanuel make the motion, and who online seconded, please?
Annette,
Thank you, Annette.
you're welcome.
That came from Weck.
Yes.
Yeah, please thank Weck. Bringing that. Good, anything else on?
That is it.
Thank you, Carolyn, thank you, Danny, thank you, Anna, appreciate, all of the work there that goes into, keeping those programs viable. I did talk to Bill, I think we are, going to add a meeting, maybe in February. We could talk a little bit more about that proposal around the bylaws changes. Give us a chance maybe to provide a brief update during the legislative session. We hope things move quickly at that time. And we'll look to holding that remotely. So it'll be on Zoom that way. Go that way for hours. So you keep it relatively short, probably about 2 hours or so. That on so we'll work to get that on your calendars. Okay, that's great. Bill, anything you want to add?
Just the next meeting is June 5th and 6th in Yakima, so please add that to your agenda. They are offering to do a tour of their winery program as a driver of economic.
Twist our arm.
We'll have a designated driver of economic development.
It's on their joke.
Oh, it's on their campus.
That's a joke.
I think state worker caps are constraints on that one, period.
I'm just saying it'll be after hours. So anyway, they are offering that. So put that on your calendar. We'll send out a meeting request and
Yes, and then I also want to recognize Courtney Robinson, one of our business representatives, who has served with us last few years. This is Courtney's last meeting. I'm not sure if Courtney's still on or.
I'm here, yeah.
Courtney, we just want to thank you for your service. We know this is additional work for you. You're already busy, and so for you to take the time to lend your expertise has been really impactful. So just want to celebrate you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Wish you much success going forward. Great, anything else? Okay, anything else from the group? Thanks again to our colleagues here at Olympic for being here. Okay, thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of your day, and we'll see you soon.
take some brownies and a pack lunch.